must, I know that you must be on your way, on your way, on your way.
right. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is David Patrick Harry with Church of the Eternal Logos, and I am joined by the very special and intelligent Rachel Wilson. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you for that glowing introduction. That's so nice of you to say.
Well, everybody knows it's true. Everybody loves your streams when you come on. I love having conversations with you. FYI, for people to know, we don't even go back on what we're going to talk about. We just have a general topic, and we just freestyle like we're getting ready to now. And I'm sure we're going to dive into such good things. And so today I asked you to come on and kind of talk about a little bit in your wheelhouse, the occult, witchcraft, and sort of concepts of feminine power. And so what I wanted to get into, obviously a bit of a clickbaity title, Whorrific there, a little pun on words, but I wanted to discuss within the historical practice of witchcraft, understandings of female sex and power. And so I think that will lay a foundation for so much of what we can dive into a little bit more intricately and nuanced moving forward. But can you just, to lay the groundwork, talk a little bit about your book, which, again, you did a stream on here for anybody wants to see it, tell them where they can buy your book, and then lay out maybe a little bit of how you see the relationship, the historical practice of witchcraft, and then female sexual power.
Sure. So I do have a book. It's called Occult Feminism, The Secret History of Women's Liberation. And I wrote the book because, I was disillusioned with modern feminism and how it affected my life. And just in doing a little bit of reading, I started to notice a pattern of, history being rewritten by gender studies professors and women's studies departments. And I thought, well, that's odd. And the more and more I got into it, the more and more I found that modern feminism, first of all, it's not new. It goes way back all the way through history, and that it's almost always related to the occult. It kind of comes right out of the occult, right. Which you wouldn't really guess that from the current political ethos that we're dealing with. You would think it's a political topic, right? And that's because everybody has this big misunderstanding of what history was like for women, because the story's been totally rewritten. So I went all the way back and started looking into ancient goddess worship cults and, what really happened with a lot of the witch trials all around different places in the world. And it's been changed. So the history now is there were really no such thing as witches. And if there were, they were just using herbs. It was no big deal. It was just a bunch of paranoid Christians going crazy and becoming hysterical, right?
Yep.
But you can find the book on Amazon. If you don't like Amazon for some reason, find me on any of my socials and message me, and I will send you a signed copy if you'd prefer to do that.
There you go.
But if you look back in history, we have many very well documented cases of real witches, women who said they were witches, who practiced witchcraft. And it was not this imaginary thing where they were just older ladies who were using herbal remedies. There may have been some of that. There may have been some cases and places where things got hysterical. Not going to say that never happened, but we do know that witchcraft was very widely practiced, very influential, and where a lot of the aversion to it comes from is from things like witches being the ones who primarily were midwives and performed and provided abortions before that was a medical procedure. Prior to the 50s, that was not something that you did in a doctor's office. It was done by a midwife. It was done at home. It was often done in secret. Because, especially in Christian countries, it was illegal. So I have brought you a couple of really fun cases today.
I can't wait.
Yeah, I'm so stoked about this because somehow these two that I'm going to talk about escaped. They were not on my radar for my book, and I'm so happy that I found them because they prove the point even better. So this first case is amazing that we don't all know about it. Uh-huh. So we kind of do. This happened in France in the 17th century. So mid to late 1600s, there was a woman named Now, I'm going to butcher it because it's French and I have a Midwestern accent, so I can't pronounce French words in a pretty way. So sorry in advance. But her name was Catherine Monvoisin, probably Monvoisin or something.
Okay.
She went by Lavoisin, and she was a professional sorcerer in Paris in the 1600s. This is one of the most well-documented cases I've come across. We have court records, we have police records, we have multiple eyewitness testimony, and one of the reasons for that is one of her biggest and most loyal clients was King Louis XIV's mistress. So it's a very well documented case. And this woman, she was a professional sorcerer, a satanic witch, fortune teller, and she was a professional poisoner and abortion provider. And she had a whole network of witches who worked with her and for her doing this work. Her clientele were the upper class of Parisian society. They were the aristocrats. And basically, she got caught poisoning people and providing people with poisons. The police in Paris at the time noticed there's suddenly a lot of aristocrats dying from poisoning. Mm-hmm. And they caught one of her like lower level employees trying to sell a poison to somebody. And she kind of spilled the beans as to what was going on with this circuit of people and what they were up to. So the police there estimate that between 1,000 and 2,500 people were poisoned by her and her witchcraft ring over the course of about 7 years. That's a lot. And a lot of the people who came to her for this were, maybe it would be an aristocrat who his older brother was going to inherit the family fortune. He was the younger brother and wasn't going to get as much, so he wanted to do away with the older brother and not get caught. So they'd go to the witch. The witch would cast a spell, give them a potion or a poison of some kind to use, and kind of suggest how they might be able to use it and not get caught. And word kind of got around about this. So she built up quite a clientele and made a very good living for herself. And so did a couple of her employees. Mostly women. She did have 2 male priests that helped her when she would conduct paid black masses. The black masses were actually her most highly recommended and expensive service that she offered. Now, the details of this are very disturbing. So if you guys are like sensitive to this kind of thing, just letting you know.
Earmuffs, people.
Well, she would conduct this black mass that was like a total inversion of like a Catholic mass. Right. And she would have the client make their wish to Satan, write it on a piece of paper. They'd put it in a ball of wax and burn the ball of wax. While they're doing this, they would have a woman who acted as an altar. She would like lay on a table and be a human altar. Okay. They would put a bowl on her stomach and then sacrifice a baby and bleed the baby out into the bowl while doing the black mass and burning this wish. And whoever the client was would, pray to Satan for whatever it was that they wanted. Wow. Sometimes, I guess it differed. Sometimes it was a live infant. Sometimes it was one that may have been like recently aborted or something like that they would use. But yes, King Louis XIV's mistress, Madame de Montespan, did several of these with her. In fact, in one of them, she was the person acting as the altar. So she was the woman on the table. Wow. And her motivation for hiring Lavoisin was she wanted to be King Louis's like head mistress, hopefully his wife at some point. Apparently he had a lot of mistresses that were all competing with one another for his time, attention, and influence, right? So anytime the relationship wasn't going great or there was a rival mistress, she would go to this witch and do a black mass and try to get more influence with King Louis.
There's a few things that you said regarding this first example that I'd love to dive into. And the beginning point would be that I would like to highlight that the role of the witch is a category that exists outside that of what a woman would be within a Christian paradigm or traditional categories of femininity, where you see the female often associated with the generation of life. And all the examples that you gave, again, sterile forms of sexuality or adultery, abortion, poisoning, various aspects in which we see then the witch is in an inverse role of the woman herself, that her role is it's not fecundity, it's not the creation of life, it's not fertility. It's in a way the harnessing of sexual energies for a sort of purpose of death, really. It comes down towards that. And so whether it be her being a mistress, or then, as I'm sure we'll get into, more contemporary feminism and the way women use their sexuality as a power dynamic over men.
Yes.
And it's not for the creation of family. It's not for children. It's not for life. So their sexuality is an instrument for the sterility, which is also, it's another form of death in regard to the society itself and culture, generally speaking. And so continue on wherever you want to go with the example you gave. But I thought it was so insightful that all the dimensions and aspects, the practices that she was participating in, none of them are life generating.
Right. They're an inversion of everything that a good woman would do. Right. So yeah, she only facilitated all of her services, facilitated death in some way for the most part. So this woman who was the mistress, Madame de Montespan, she ended up using this witch for about 6 years. And it got to a point where, she's getting older. This is something that I talk about all the time. These younger, beautiful women are used to having power and influence over men, and they think it's going to always continue. And, somebody younger comes along. This one, it was only 6 years, but the king got a younger girlfriend that was getting all the attention and having all the influence over him. And she said, I will try one more black mass, and if it doesn't get me the intended result, I'm going to kill him. I'm going to kill the king.
That sounds about right.
Yeah. So they did one more black mass. It did not work. And they hatched a plot to poison King Louis XIV of France. And it was only really by sheer luck that they got caught, because they made one attempt where it didn't work. The witch herself went to the court and tried to hand him something like a piece of paper that when he would touch it was going to poison him. But her plot got foiled just because it was too busy that day at the court and she couldn't get to him yet. So they were going to come up with another plan. And two of the witches who were working for this woman, this head witch, one of them got drunk and was bragging to people, I guess one of whom was she didn't know was a cop, a Parisian police officer at some party or something like that. And she was bragging about how she was making so much money off of what she was doing with this witch that she might be able to retire soon. And so the cop became interested because they had noticed all these poisonings happening and they couldn't tie it to anything. So that's when the cop got his wife to go to the lower status witch and say, oh, I want to kill my husband. You have a poison. And the lady was like, sure, and sold her a poison. So then the cops were able to arrest this witch. And when they interrogated her, she implicated Lavoisin and the whole ring of witches and kind of spilled the beans as to all the different things they were doing. She told the police in France that they had been burning the aborted fetuses and infants in an oven and burying them in this witch's garden. And this is crazy to me, but when this came out, King Louis XIV ordered that the abortion aspect and the murdered infant aspect of this case not be investigated. He didn't want them digging up the garden or looking for bodies. And I'm almost positive it's because a lot of his mistresses were going to this woman for services.
Yeah, probably.
And he didn't want that to come out, maybe. So we don't know for sure if that part of the story is true or if it might have been something they made up. But they are very certain the black masses, the abortions, all that stuff was admitted to by all the witches in the ring. And then the daughter of Lavoisin also confirmed that this was, and she said too that it was true. Like, yes, we used the furnace in the house to burn the bodies, and we buried the ashes and what's left of the bones in the garden. So
for people who may be hearing this who aren't any regular to this channel hearing that and saying, preach, sister, where other people may be hearing this and think that it's a little bit radical. The idea of child sacrifice, putting blood in a bowl, most likely for the ritualistic consumption. I've heard people say this, but that was probably just the Christians over exaggerating people that they were condemning at the time due to the hysterics of the Middle Ages and everything. But the Church of Satan has come out after the Supreme Court ruling and explicitly stated, which we already knew, we don't need them to say this, but they did come out and say that ritualistic abortion is part of their religion, and based on the various amendments in America, the religious freedom, that they should then have the right to practice their religion, which means the right then to do ritualistic abortions. And people don't understand that this is all tied to blood magic. And that blood and the inversion of blood and the use of blood, and I recently did a stream talking about modern vampires, and I think this gets back then to these witches, whether it be Maria Abrahamovich or Cher or, these contemporary women, J-Lo, not saying that she's a witch or anything, but these women are 50 plus. And they look like, Cher, for example, is in her 70s. Maria Abrahamovich is in her 70s. And they look like they're in their 40s. And this is most likely due to the ritualistic use of blood itself, because as I talked about in that stream, parabiosis is a process in which blood from people from the ages of 16 to 25 is through an IV inserted in somebody else, which then helps rejuvenate their tissue. Yeah. Now, these ancient practices of magic that people said were hysterical Christian, accusations, claim that the blood of infants was ritualistically used. Again, and based on the science that we know, that is going to rejuvenate tissue and make a woman look younger. And so babies
and fetuses have way more stem cells. The placenta, so they might not have known why that worked. And we would generally say that a lot of this satanic type of witchcraft, that demons told people how to do it. A lot of that was, every occultist and witch ever has said that some entity came to them and told them how to do these things, right? So it would make sense to me that even if they didn't know scientifically why this worked, that it did work. And this is why they did it. And this is why, the mistresses of this powerful king are coming to this witch for spells and blood magic to keep them young, to keep them attractive to him, so that they can have some kind of power, influence. That's a tale as old as time. Literally some of the oldest stories ever written. Shout out Bayes Lit Analyzer. He knows what I'm talking about. Are about women trying to influence powerful men for their own gain. It's some of the oldest stories that we have. So none of this is really surprising, but the reason I like this particular case is because they executed her in 1680. Paris, France was very sophisticated and modern in 1680, more than you would think. They had a very sophisticated police force. They had, detectives. They had really comprehensive court records and things like that. We're not talking about, rural Scotland in the 1200s, right, where we don't have much record and all we have is legend. This isn't legend. This is like a legal case. You can look this up on Wikipedia. Right. There's been movies made about it. It's something that we have a ton of historical documentation to back up that this is what was actually going on. So for people who think that all witch trials everywhere were just hysterical Christians having a satanic panic, that's definitely not what was going on here. And again, we're talking about thousands of people poisoned and thousands more aborted. That's a lot of people. She should be considered one of the greatest mass murderers that we know of, really. Right. Her and her little band of witches here. So I think that that's a really great case to kind of set a standard for the fact that this stuff is real. It has always happened, and it's still going on. This is not something that has gone away.
No, not
by
at all.
any means. If anything, it's seeing a revival. So,
and you can see the narcissistic inversion again of the traditional archetype of a woman. She cares for the children. She is very generous and self-giving. And what we see with the historical practice of witchcraft, specifically associated with blood sacrifice and abortions, is a sacrificial killing of the children. What for? For my own power, for my own, anti-aging, for my own sorcery. So the archetype of the witch then is not self-giving. It is self-serving, and it destroys life. It destroys children. It sacrifices those things which a woman traditionally would be most associated with. And that's why we don't see witches with husbands, right? The archetype of the witch is not a married woman with a family. It is the cat lady. Literally.
Right.
Literally.
Well, this witch had a husband technically, but I guess he was kind of a deadbeat who didn't provide or do anything.
And he knew that she was sleeping with the king?
No, that was the mistress, the witch herself, the old lady witch who was doing the black masses for the mistresses of the king. She had a husband, like she had been married in her youth, and the husband became like kind of a vagabond who didn't work or anything like that. And in her trial, she tried to use that as like a defense, like I had a family to support or something like that. But they quite rightly pointed out that she had taken at least half a dozen lovers outside her marriage that they knew about, probably tons more, and that she was doing sex magic stuff with them as well.
Right.
To try to enhance her witchcraft power. She was like a really popular fortune teller as well. That was like what got her into witchcraft. She started with fortune telling when she was young and started doing like other types of magic to try to get better at that and make more money at that. And then she was a midwife and started to do abortion services. And I think the black masses like came later when she was just like, whatever, I'm just going to go all in on this stuff, because she made a lot of money. So you have the witches, the ring of witches making a ton of money. And that's like a lot of what they're getting out of it, as well as the power. And they've got like the most influential and wealthy people in France coming to them for these services. So I have to think that could have given them some power and some sway and made it a lot easier to get away with, Right. And another thing that I noticed when I'm researching a lot of these people is a lot of these women who did this sort of stuff. That's my doggy. A lot of them were spies, because of the fact that they would work for people who were heads of state or aristocrats or things like that. They would trade in secrets as well. Right. Because they would know these people's darkest secrets.
And that's a great point in regards to, again, the loyalty of the woman, right? So I think this is a perfect example, indicative of the modern woman who has no family loyalty, but she has a loyalty to the patriarchal all-father, the government itself, or a sort of ruling system. And so you look at whether it be these witches that maybe acted as spies, or now the contemporary woman who is engaging in promiscuous forms of sex, having multiple partners, using her potential beauty and sex as a leveraging tool, as a power over men to manipulate them. And so at the same time, then they go along with the leftist progressive agenda, or the media complex, the matrix itself, because that is their authoritative system. They don't have a husband, they don't have a tradition to root themselves in regards to orient themselves in the world. So it's just self-serving pleasure, which is one of these indicative examples of magic itself, is that it's always about my will and the manifestation of my will. And so modern women, whether they think of themselves as a witch or practice any form of magic, are being set up to perceive their relationship to the world in a solitary way, which allows them to then take on this archetype of a witch very, very easy.
Yeah, it's almost insidious. Like you could see how they could almost get drawn into it without totally knowing what they're doing at first. But I love this meme I post all the time of, there's like a wife in the kitchen making a sandwich, and then there's like a girl at a Subway in the Subway uniform making a sandwich. And the Subway girl is like telling her husband, get up and make your own sandwich. I'm going to work, and then she's at work making and it's like, this is a big point that I make in my book, is that the people who funded feminism, the people who funded suffrage, who funded the beginning of women's studies programs, the people who funded the sexual revolution propaganda, made all the movies and the music and propped up all the people who were going to message this stuff out. Right. They were people who owned giant international corporations. What a shock.
Right.
Because then they get double the taxes. They get women instead of, and this is what Marxists will always yell and scream about, is look at women doing all the unpaid labor. Imagine if we took all their unpaid labor and put it into the economy.
Right.
Well, who benefits from that? Not me. Like
Yeah.
if I were to go get a full-time job and have to pay daycare, gas to get there, pay all my taxes to work there, at the end of me working this long career, I haven't gotten much out of it. I'm lucky if I can pay my bills and get by. Most women are in that boat.
Right.
But corporations get a lifetime of service from you.
Yep.
You will call off things in your personal life. You will put off raising your own kids and
Yep.
pay someone else to do it so that you can go serve them.
Yep.
So it totally is an inversion of what women are created to do. I mean, this idea that we are going to give birth, create human beings, give birth to them, and then ship them off to someone else and pay them $11 an hour to take care of the baby, right? While we go serve a corporate master of some kind. It's like, that doesn't even make sense on its face. Like, there's no rational person who's like, yeah, that sounds like a good, efficient way to do things. Right. But I mean, this week on Twitter, I had dozens of people absolutely freaking out on me because I said this. And it's like, how dare you? How dare you? How dare you? Wow. And the other crazy thing about that is that you'll say, the people who get mad about it, you've been so trained and so propagandized and you don't even realize it. They'll say, well, I have daughters and my wife and her mother before her fought hand over fist, and they fought so hard that for them to have the right to have a job and an education. And I will defend their right to have an education and a job. And I'm like, okay. And then they'll say, well, you're a stay-at-home mom. That's nice for you. It's good that you're so privileged to be able to do that, because not all of us can choose that option. Some of us have to work. And I'm like, wait, is it a right to, is it like we fought for a right to work and we'll defend it at any cost because working is what we want?
Right.
Or is it, we're so unlucky and so oppressed and downtrodden that we can't stay home. We'd love to stay home, but we can't. We have to work, right? I'm like,
both.
It can't be both.
And that's what they want. Both. They want it to be both. It can't be. It's an oxymoron.
Right.
It's ironic. But
so
go ahead.
The whole thing is incoherent, is what my point is.
Yeah, it absolutely is.
The reason it's incoherent and makes no sense is because it comes from an inversion. Yes. It comes from the inversion of witchcraft and occult practice and fostering feelings in women of being jealous of youth and beauty, of being envious and jealous that someone else has a higher status man. It comes from like, what would motivate a woman to get into witchcraft? It's always like envy, jealousy, bitterness. Right. Why don't I have that? Or, that's why a lot of the legends are about childless women, right? Old childless women, hags, right?
Yeah. People that are focused on themselves. It comes back to a sense of self-worship or narcissism of one way or another. And so I think what's so interesting in some of the stuff you were talking about in regards to them not having a family or traditionally a husband is that the modern woman, also with the witch, falls in love with things that can't love them back. And so a woman, generally speaking, not all women, but the archetype of a traditional woman is emotionally giving. And in that giving process, they give it to their children, they give it to their husband, they give it to their friends, their extended family. And then women are kind of like the glue. If men are the perimeter, women are the glue that hold the whole structure together. But these witches or modern women, what do they exchange the family for? A job that doesn't love them back. Literally, their serial number. Animals. I mean, what's this thing with fur babies, cats and dogs now becoming children? Well, okay, you can definitely form a relationship with animals, but that's not the same thing as a child. And to substitute that insinuates that you yourself are an animal, which I would argue as a Christian, that's what they're becoming by their rejection of God and moving more to their sort of based reality, their based senses. And so they love power, they love money, like they love to travel, they love to have promiscuous sex, different sexual partners. Like, what is the modern woman exchanging for the love to give to a child that can love you back and the love you can give to a man that can love you back? They give it to all these things that can't love them back in the witch themselves, whether it be their spell book, whether it be the Satyrs and Sisters, whether it be power, whatever it is. They love things that obviously don't love them back. And that is this beginning of this sort of satanic vortex of moving towards evil. Because you don't love, because love, God's love itself, real love with children, love with another person, that is going to move you in some way closer to God. And so smashing that out of women's lives or making them think that somehow that's going to restrict them pushes them into a place where they have little meaning outside the things that physically please them sensually. And then children and a husband may not be fun at certain times, but you're going to get so much more meaning out of that. And the investment of your affection and love is actually building a person. There's nothing more important than that.
Yeah, exactly. So when you see these girls in thongs bouncing around on Instagram and they've got 1 million followers or 500,000 followers or 50,000 followers, what do we call them? We call them influencers.
Yeah.
And what were these women going to the witch for? Influence.
Yep.
Because influence is power.
Yep.
And so it's always like this envy of looking at a man or a woman who's prettier, anyone who's got more power or influence than you, and being like bitter, jealous, salty about it, and going, well, why don't I have that? I should have that. Is kind of, it's the spirit of where this stuff kind of comes from, is like a bitter, self-serving, jealous type of a feeling. Because like I had a debate with a girl who is a sex worker and has satanic tattoos all over her. And we were, excuse me, I think that she's like salvageable. So I was trying to like reach out to her, and we were kind of joking back and forth too. And I had made like a reference early in the debate to all these strong, independent career women picking the most low tier, lazy, easy thing you can do, which is just take naked pictures of yourself and post them and get money. Right. And later in the debate, she kind of accused me and said, well, look at you. You're just a stay-at-home mom. Isn't that the same thing? You're just laying around the house being lazy. Let some man do all the work. Isn't that what you're doing? And I said, oh boy. And she had said she wanted kids. She said, well, I'm going to turn it around. I'm going to get married and have kids. I'm going to do that. And I'm like, if you think that what I do is lazy woman's work and that I'm just laying around all day letting someone take care of me, you are going to have a hard time adjusting.
Right.
And that's another part of this equation, is these girls who think they can have it all by doing the sex kitten witchcraft stuff early. And then they're like, when I'm about to age out, then I'll flip and turn trad, right? Yep. Then I'll become a good trad wife. And right when I think that I'm to the point where I better snag that higher status guy because soon I'm about to age out of that, right? Yep. Then I'll flip, and then I'll suddenly become a wife and a mom. And that doesn't work. Right. And it's because you can't do that. You can't create within yourself this tendency to just put out sexy vibes to get things, and then suddenly flip to a life of ascetic service and selflessness, where, you're like me, not sleeping for 13 years because you're up with a baby all the time, and you're nursing all the time, and you're cleaning throw up off of yourself most days. And it's very unglamorous, and it's very thankless early on. Yeah. So what I did is the opposite. I put in all the hard work in the first half of life. Very unglamorous, very thankless, just wearing my sweatpants and trying to get through the day on 2.5 hours of sleep and get everybody fed and get everyone school stuff. And, it's a lot. Right. And you give everything you've got, and it is hard. Right. But there comes a point, and this is why I always tell women, think about that second half of your life. Think about the second half of your life. Most of us are going to live into our 80s now. Okay. You have a lot of living to do after 35. That's a long time. What if you live another half a century after 35? Okay. So now I am to the point where my two oldest are moved out. They're on their own. My youngest is 10, so she's pretty self-sufficient and can do a lot. And I have some time now to do wonderful things like be on this stream with you and, write a book on something I'm interested in. It's not that we can't have other things. I'm not trying to force you into a life of permanent servitude when I tell you focus on motherhood and femininity and family. I'm saying put in the work early, just like men do, where you're working and grinding through your 20s and 30s so that you can enjoy a nice retirement. It's the same thing being a woman. You build the family, you put in all that work, and then when your kids grow up, you have good relationships with your kids. You have grandkids that are around. And when you're older, they take care of you. They come and visit you. They check in on you. They love you, and everybody in the family is like, oh my gosh, grandma's my favorite. And they have, my kids will hopefully tell stories about me to their kids and their grandkids. Right. And if you want something that's close to immortality, being a great matriarch of a strong Christian family, it doesn't get any better than that. Right. My grandma's 96. She's my favorite person in the whole world. She's close to all my kids. And she's not lonely. She's well taken care of because we all love and adore her, and she gave us so much. Right. That's what you want. You don't want to make deals with Satan so that you can be the top mistress for 6 years, and then you end up getting burned at the stake. Right. And for what? And what do you get at the end of that life?
Nothing. That's the thing, is they don't get anything in exchange. These transcendental values that are actually meaningful and of importance, they're exchanging for sorts of immediate pleasure and sensual pleasures and all this different stuff. And so I wanted to go back to that archetype of the modern girl who has her sort of witchy sex girl, hot girl phase in her 20s, and then she's going to turn it around, like the satanic sex worker that you were talking about, how she was going to turn around and get a man later. And this is part of the phenomenon where in the manosphere, again, God rest Kevin Samuel's soul, but his channel was talking a lot to these women in their 30s who then, in their minds, because of the sexual leverage that they had during their 20s over men, thinking that, okay, well, I want to sleep with him, so then they go flirt, or they're at the club or whatever, then they end up together, and then they do that, or maybe she then ghosts him the next day, or they end it. She thinks that this is like how easy it is to get men, right? Yep. And it is, if you're just getting a man that wants to have sex. I mean, we are much less emotional in our sexual engagement with somebody. Don't have to really care to speak to you, don't have to kiss you, don't have to do any of that stuff for a man to have sex. So we're much less emotional. Yet these women think that, okay, well, now I'm in my 30s, I'm out of my hot girl summer phase, now I'm going to go get that guy. And it's like, well, one, you don't have the values to get the guy who, okay, she's saying, well, I'm going to eventually have a husband and kids, and then I'll be a stay-at-home mom. Are you? Because that means you're going to have to get a man who's signing up to give you that stay-at-home lifestyle in exchange for you then to raise the children and take care of things. So this whole thing, what they don't realize is that the man that they're looking for is also expecting a sort of partnership with the woman who's going to offer the things that he's looking for. And if you're 30 and now you're 33 and now you're 36 and now you're 38 and you have all that baggage, a man taking that on to make you the mother of his lineage is much less likely than women are expecting.
Oh, yeah. So it's really hard to pull that off. But think about even if you did. Think about if you did find the guy who was willing to do that. You've trained yourself from, most of these girls around the age of 15 or so, when they start blossoming, right, is when they start to go, ooh, I kind of have some power over these boys around me because they like the way I look. So maybe you just flip it when you're 30. Well, you've trained yourself for 15 years to expect instant gratification.
Yep.
That all you have to do is either cry and bat your eyes or show a little cleavage to get something. You're used to lots of attention, almost so much attention that it's annoying to them, right? And now suddenly you're going to be happy with one hardworking guy who's at work all week. So this is the other big thing that women don't think about. They don't think about the fact that you've trained yourself for those dopamine hits to just be always coming. Like, simp sent me cash, simp sent me cash, simp told me I'm hot.
Yep.
Ooh, this guy's taking me out on a date this weekend. Oh, I'm going on a fancy vacation with this guy because, well, I have to sleep with him, but I get the fancy vacation, right. So it's fine.
And the Instagram photos are going to look, they're going to look on fleek, you know.
Yeah, and I'm going to get likes, and I'm going to get comments, and I'm going to get endless dopamine hits and of validation for this one dimension of me, which is what I look like in my sexuality.
Right.
And that's going to go away.
Yep.
It's going to go away. And I know you're looking at J-Lo and you're looking at Madonna, or maybe not her. She don't look so good now. That Witchcraft is wearing off for Madonna.
Had too much surgery or something. They may have pulled that back a little too tight. I don't know what's going on with her face.
It's a little terrifying. But a lot of them, you know, they look at this and they're like, well, I can just pull this off forever now. And the other thing they think, because they're so short-term minded, because they're so used to short-term gratification, and I've heard them say this, I won't care when I'm 60. It's just like, who cares about 60-year-old me? Screw 60-year-old me. Like, whatever, I'll worry about it then. So it's like, you're really setting yourself up for disaster and hardship. And like, it's not surprising that a girl like this would end up being that old hag crone archetype of a witch that's living out on the edge of the woods with her cats.
Right.
Because you would hate people. At the end of 15 or 20 years living like a hot girl, you're going to hate men. You're going to think that they're terrible. You're going to resent other women who are younger than you. In fact, I witnessed this too on Twitter. Older girl who used to be a hot girl and skated by in that for a long time and is about 40 now, having an absolute cat fight with a hot 22-year-old because they were looking at mirror images of each other. And the older one was like, at the younger one. And it was just so obvious to like the whole rest of the world what was happening there. But the 40-year-old just was like, no, no, no. So it's like, don't build your world around something so temporary. I was having a discussion with Jamie. We did a stream and I said, it's kind of like Cinderella and the carriage turning back into a pumpkin at midnight. This is a small snapshot of your life, ladies. Yep. This is a short period where you have all this tremendous power and leverage, and you have it when you're young and inexperienced, and when you don't have a lot of discipline yet. And we just need to do more to discourage that kind of behavior for their good. It's not like I'm jealous because you're making $200 a week on your OnlyFans. Right. You know, like that's not my motivation. My motivation is I'm watching you run headfirst into a wall and I'm trying to tell you to stop. And you're just like, whatever, you're just jealous of me. Right. It's like, okay.
And that's that ritualistic exchange of power, right? Anybody who's familiar with magic or practice magic knows that magic is absolutely, we're not talking about stage magic. We're talking about real ritualistic magic. And that is absolutely real. And by far the majority of the time when you perform those rituals, you get the consequences or the things that you're looking for. But it's also an exchange. And so you've exchanged something in return for that. And that's exactly what young women are doing with the sexual promiscuity and sort of blowing it at the 20-year-old mark, like through their 20s, is that, and this offended some of the Orthodox guys, but, you know, get over it. I said that women are born with innate value that men don't have. Men are more expendable to a culture. That's soldiers, war, dying. That's just a fact. One man can impregnate multiple women. Historically, that's always been the case. Women and fertile women have an innate value that men don't have. And so men then have to build their worth, their social status, so that then they can get a woman that has high innate value. That would be like her virginity, her beauty, her submissiveness, her religiosity, all this different stuff. And so these young women are exchanging that very important part of their life where they have all this leverage and power. And then they're now in their 30s and they think they have the same efficacy, right? The same magical efficacy in regards to their power, and it doesn't. Right. And they are then becoming the old hag. The cat lady archetype is the old hag archetype of the witch on, like you said, the periphery of the city. And if you don't play smart and keep that sexual power, your beauty, your purity intact, you're going to be really lost because you've exchanged. That was the exchange you made. All that immediate pleasure, all that fun, those nightclubs, traveling, the different sexual partners, those late nights. Well, now you're 30, now you're 32, 33, and what did you exchange? You exchanged the one thing you can never get back, which is your time and also your soul to some degree, depending on what they did or did not do or had an abortion or XYZ. So this is a fundamental process that energy, that transference of energy, the young women participating in this is the energy that's fueling the global Great Reset and the inversion of everything and all this different stuff, is that they are participating in the sort of sacrificial energetic process of their own innate value into the system that's inverting all that stuff and then really affecting the men and trying to lock us into a sort of sexual prism where we're totally led by our sexual pleasure and then they control all the women to take their clothes off, metaphorically speaking. But then it's like that's how they control society, is the women give over to this system and then the men can't control themselves and follow the women right down the road towards the end times ultimately.
Total ruination. I know, that's why it's like people think, I've had people say stuff to me like, why are you so hung up on this one thing and why do you even care, just let women do what they want, like blah 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 blah. And it's not just one thing. This is the root of everything you say you're upset about. So like when people complain about transgender ideology or they complain about like PORN addiction and like all these problems, I'm like, you couldn't have any of this prior to the sexual liberation of women. Like think about what the actual motivations for that kind of thing must have been. There used to be a time where the culture told young women that this is temporary. You're not going to be hot and, have all this power and influence forever. It doesn't last. Like it used to be that the grandmothers and the mothers would pass this down. It was like something women understood. And so at least you had forewarning. At least you didn't grow up in a culture that absolutely pushed you into this and told you you have to do it. Like, I feel so bad for these girls that are growing up with Instagram and stuff right now because they are not even getting a chance to develop as a human being outside of what their butt looks like, what their nose looks like. And we've got like 8th graders going, okay, I'm going to have to start my OnlyFans the minute I turn 18 so that I can afford the lip injections and the butt injections and the eyebrow lifts and the hair extensions and all this fake stuff. So we put people like Kardashians out there and they start doing this. And now they look like absurd caricatures
that's
of real
the perfect example of this sort of witchy phenomenon. Now, I'm not claiming they are witches. Certainly I've read articles, major speculation about their mother there that they believe.
I will claim it.
Yeah. Well, I've seen other people.
Just my opinion. Yeah. Just my opinion.
That the mother there certainly is interested in various witchy ritualistic activities. But that's a perfect example of again how none of those women are in a functioning relationship. Not a single woman is a strong traditional woman for her children. I mean, like,
and the dad of the first dad died. The second dad became a woman.
Yes.
I mean, that sounds like some witchcraft to me. And this is literally a spell. When you continually put these images out, like, I don't know if you've seen it, but some of the girls now with the hip injections and stuff, it looks absurd. They don't look like humans. It's transhumanist, really, because they've got a waist this small with the corset thing, and then the big fake boobs, and then the huge hips and thighs that come out to like here, and then everybody looks the same with the almost invisible nose, the huge overblown lips, the giant fake eyelash extensions, the 10-foot long fake hair. Fake. And it convinces women that they are blow-up dolls.
Yes. That's literally what they're becoming.
That's what they look like.
I actually saw an article it's so funny you said that on Twitter. It was a woman talking about, it was like the New York Post. I had plastic surgery to look like my husband's sex doll.
I saw that.
Like, and she's like smiling, posing next to a blow up doll that she got cosmetic surgery to look like. The damn doll has a flat face. These are just lines painted on.
But these women tell me that I am oppressed, that I'm abused, that like the life I've chosen for myself is, you know, I'm not independent and liberated like they are. And I'm like, you don't look very liberated to me if you are spending thousands of dollars and going under the knife to look like your boyfriend's blow up doll. Like, can we get just a little bit of common sense here? But it's like a spell. It's like a spell that's been cast. And the men are under it. Like the men are programmed just as much to get the dopamine hit. That's why they're in, you know, that's why they're in Belle Delphine's OnlyFans trying to buy her bath water or something like that.
Exactly.
Because same thing, any little tiny shred of attention that one of these e-girls throws at some of these guys, it's like a drug. It's like they can't stop with it.
That's
and
true.
One of the worst things I found when I was researching for this stream, I was looking for old sex magic stuff. And I found an article about how to do sex magic for beginners and make your orgasms give you what you want on Teen Vogue.
Oh my God.
TeenVogue.com. They're really targeting younger and younger girls with this witchcraft stuff, and telling them to use crystals for this sort of thing. And
historically, women are always, and this is not a slight or a condemnation, this is a survival mechanism. Women are always more readily adopting of new systems, new ideologies. It comes, again, the research I've read comes from, again, if your tribe was conquered by a more powerful tribe, those women would have to then be part of that other tribe. And so women just have a different demeanor because historically, generally speaking, you weren't killed. The men couldn't just, I'll become part of that tribe. They're going to be killed. So they didn't have to fight to the death. Yeah. They're dead. And then the women can adopt the new system. And so then you look at all the mind programming and how everything's geared for women. All commercials, women are now like 80% of the consumer market. And so all commercials are geared towards women. Obviously, they're all interracial couples. I'm not even going to get into that. But the system itself, women are gatherers. And so shopping is a form of contemporary gathering. And so then through all the commercials, all the commodification of everything, they then have commodified themselves as a commodity. And there is no authenticity because there is no ultimate meaning because God is totally out of the picture. So again, when it comes back to actual love, actual service, actual children, a real relationship with a man, these things are absent. And as you said with Teen Vogue, this stuff is just getting women to fall deeper and deeper and deeper into this rabbit hole because it's not just, a temporary phase. This is a sinful darkening of one's noetic abilities. And so getting out of that hole becomes more and more and more difficult the deeper and deeper and deeper one goes out there. Now, Christ can rescue everybody, but that's where this witchcraft, whether it be ancient, you have to see these relationships to then see how in the contemporary period, this has not gone away just because people don't speak the way that we're speaking about magic and witchcraft. This is more, well, I wouldn't say more, but just as prevalent as it was back in the ancient period before Christianity. I mean, so we're kind of back there.
And we have the danger now of you don't have to go into the woods and seek out an actual witch, which is far more intimidating and scary. You can find all this stuff just by clicking around, or little kids, 12-year-old girls on their phone scrolling through Instagram are seeing women explaining how to do period blood rituals and feed your plants with it and stuff. It's like, it sounds so crazy. And it's like, who would believe this? But we also have this, society where Christianity is silly and old fashioned and, goofy, but evolution is not goofy or far-fetched. And materialism is like, duh, obviously I can see it, so it's real, so it matters. And so first you've got this paradigm that makes, everything we're talking about silly, stupid, foolish. Smart girls would never do that. This is something I get told all the time is like, you're silly, you're ignorant, somebody must have brainwashed you. Even the men. I had men coming at me all week on Twitter Which, first of all, I was like, the fact that you're over here trying to defend your liberal women just shows
that you're
for
weak.
a fact.
Yeah, you're weak. You're a weak dude.
Yeah, and that you care about women. So, like, if you think that men have always abused women, men are naturally abusive monsters who are just going to abuse the women, then why are you over here going, how dare you say anything mean about women?
Well,
of course,
I'm a
you're
progressive, Rachel. I have the right values that have only been available for the last 30, 40 years. Duh.
And no
That's
man in history ever cared about his wife or his sister or his daughters or his mother. They just beat the crap out of them and abused them.
Those mean Christian men viewed them as property, and they probably beat them and spit on them and never even, never even loved them.
Care. Really. Yeah, exactly. So, I don't remember where I was going with that.
Well, just the backwardness of Christianity.
Oh, yeah.
Just and you can look at, you're talking about Teen Vogue. I did a stream, again, shout out to Beige Lit Analyzer. But we did a stream on Hocus Pocus. And the new Hocus Pocus, the second one, is totally, again, from the eyes that we're using, from Christian eyes, the whole point of Hocus Pocus #2 is to normalize high school girls performing magic to, quote unquote, stop the evils of the world. Now, again, as Christians, that is only contributing to the evils of the world, and that's why the whole damn film is so sinister. It's because it's so sort of fun and happy, and then it's these young girls, and every single man in that film is weak, pathetic, can be walked over, that has no physical presence. I mean, the most alpha man is kind of like the black magician dude, and he's kind of like, is he gay? I can't really tell.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, this is a real thing, and this is why it's like what I'm trying to do with my little hobby here with the feminism stuff is I'm trying to get people to understand that everything you think you know about this stuff is baloney. You've been swimming in a sea of propaganda for 70 years. And so when you hear somebody like me say, this is the tweet that set everything off. I said, most, in capital letters for the slow people in the back, most women cannot debate. They are used to not having to justify what they believe, not having to logically think it through, but just to go with whatever everyone around them is saying is cool or true or whatever. And there, again, is a biological reason for this. It's not a slight to women to say, most of you can't debate and go with the flow of the crowd. You do that because if you didn't do that, as a mother with infants, historically, you're probably all going to die.
Exactly.
So there's a reason you're more agreeable. There's a reason you're not as combative or confrontational about ideas and conversations. There's a reason you have this urge to go along, to get along. There's nothing wrong with that.
Nope, nothing wrong at all.
But what happens is they want to take me to task on things and tell me that I'm wrong, but they can't ever justify it or prove it or anything like that. So I'm like, you don't want to debate me. Trust me.
I love how they use the sort of patriarchy and traditional gender roles as the oppressive thing, which then you need to become. So for women, the patriarchy, they go and work, they make money, they're assertive, they go after their goals and their dreams. That patriarchy, that's what they've been doing, and they haven't let you do it, sister. And so now you can do it. And so then the women become more and more masculine like men. And then what do they tell the men? The patriarchy has prevented you from talking about your emotions and laying in a bed of flowers and twiddling them, thinking about your potential lover in the future. Yeah. The patriarchy is preventing you from getting in touch with your emotional, sensitive side. Right. No, the idea of the patriarchy as the enemy is getting all of us to become the opposite of what we're supposed to be, which is the total satanic inversion of the entire system. Yes, and
this is the other reason I'm always trying to rehabilitate the term patriarchy. A patriarchy needs patriarchs. I'm not saying put low T liberal beta males in charge of everything. You need patriarchs. We have to bring back men who are patriarchs in order to have a patriarchy, because that is what brings sanity to the chaos and stability. You don't want to live in a world with no stoic men, with emotional men who are calling into work and going, I'm sorry, but I can't run the sewage treatment plant today because I'm just in my feelings. I just need a personal day. Trust me,
Trump
you don't want
said
that.
Grab him by the pussy.
I know. Well, all of you women who want to be strong, independent boss girls, you want to get in your car that a guy built, that you take it to a guy when it needs an oil change, that you take it to a guy when the transmission goes out, that guy helps you, maintain your very high-tech new car that you probably have. You drive to work, to your office on the roads that the guys built and that the guys maintain, and people go, women work in construction. I'm like, two of them. You ever see women laying asphalt in the hot sun? No,
No.
you don't.
I see them holding the sign that says stop and slow.
They'll stand. Yeah, that's it. And then the men build and design the big building that you work in. They keep the air conditioning going. If your computer has a problem, you call the tech guy. It's like, I'm not saying women are incompetent. I'm saying this modern world that allows you to be a strong, independent boss lady is built and maintained for you by men because men love you. That's all. Right. And so this idea that like, we just need to make them all like women and then we'll be happy. No, you wouldn't. You would not. If Patrick was acting like a soy vegan cryboy, trust me, you wouldn't like it. There's a reason all of you are DMing me going, is Patrick single? Can I slide his DM? It's because he's a certain way. You're not interested in him because he looks like Spirit Man or like some of these poor guys that come on and debate on the Crucible, these vegan boys and stuff. So no, you don't want to invert men to be women and women to be men, and then it's all going to work out great. That's, if anything, the trouble we're having right now is because of that. If we went back to, if we let women be women and let men be men, everything would get so much better. Yeah. But women have been conditioned to think that makes them vulnerable, because men are brutish and nasty and violent and can't be trusted. Yeah. And they're stupid and incompetent and can't be trusted. And that men have been trained to think that women, are just like thoughts and need to be used for the one thing they're good for and then tossed away or like simped for, whichever extreme you're on. So it's like, that's the big problem that we have. And this stuff, again, it didn't start really recently. My second lady, if you want to get into her, she's very interesting. She's another one that I'm so shocked I missed during my book, but I'm glad I found her. Aleister Crowley was one of her biggest fans. And this lady you would never guess. She seems so sweet. She seems so nice. And she was around from 1857 to 1902. Her name was Ida Craddock. And this was around the time in history where we do start to see, even though sex magic has always existed, we start to see a large, sophisticated body of literature on sex magic emerging out of the 19th century with spiritism and theosophy and things like this, where we start to get a lot of like written manuals and things like that being written on how to do it. And Ida Craddock was a Quaker. She was raised with a Quaker education, which the Quakers get some special love from me in my book because they were like the real proto-feminists. They were some of the most radical Christian reformers. Yeah. And they thought that women could be pastors and presbyters and priests before anybody else did. Yep. They had some radical ideas about gender and things like veganism and stuff like that. So it's not super surprising she came out of a Quaker upbringing. But she left Quakerism for theosophy when she was about 30. She went and got a university education, which was very rare at the time. And through the university found things like Gnosticism and different religious studies. And then she found theosophy. So she left Quakerism for theosophy and became a self-proclaimed priestess and pastor of the Church of Yoga. In 1887.
Of course.
You guys, like feminists being yoga priestesses is apparently over 100 years old. So in 1887, she becomes the self-proclaimed priestess and pastor of the Church of Yoga. And she was into sex yoga. That was her thing. Wow. Now, she claimed to have never had an earthly husband and instead claimed that she was married to an angel and that she maintained a lifelong matrimonial relationship with an angel named Soph. I wondered what you have to say about the name Soph, because some things occurred to me when I heard that.
Well, I immediately think of Sophia, so a sort of shortening of wisdom itself. I mean, it's a theosophical, so the whole thing is their Gnostic engagement with transcendental wisdom itself, which is always anthropomorphically embodied.
Good. See, I'm learning from hanging out with Patrick. That's what I thought too. She claimed to have married this angel named Soph and said that she had such loud and noisy sex magic with her angel husband that her neighbors would often complain.
Oh my gosh.
I know.
And then this is a thing too that people do the succubuses of history. Like people, this is not an uncommon thing for people engaging in magic to have sexual relationships with non-physical entities.
Yes, and in fact, she wrote a book called Heavenly Bridegrooms. So Aleister Crowley reviewed this when he had like a periodical, like a journal for a while, a newspaper type of thing. He reviewed this book and he said it was the best book on sex magic he'd ever read, was essential for the library of any magic practitioner, and that you can't have a sex magic library without this book. And in this book, I was shocked because I actually this is why you guys should send me super chats when I'm on people's shows. Send my friends super chats because I'm doing all your crappy homework, reading all these feminist books and the sex magic Quaker books from the 1800s for you. But I was shocked because she cites the church fathers a lot.
Oh, really?
Yes. So she uses all kinds of passages from like Justin Martyr, St. Augustine, Clement of Alexandria, Tertullian. I know he's not technically a church father, but he was important.
Saint, but he was there
He was
an apologist, a defender.
Right. Yeah. We still think a lot of his stuff was good. And she was very well versed on not only just the Old Testament, but the wisdom books and things that would not have typically been included in a Protestant's Bible. So that was really crazy to me. And she used all of this to prove her theories about this. So this is wild, you guys. So her theory, and the reason she used all of these early sources, is because she had this theory that Christianity was actually built on an earthly woman and a heavenly bridegroom uniting to produce Jesus.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So her theory is that it was not what we think it is, but that the angel who came to Mary impregnated her. And so she, of course, saw herself as doing that same thing. And she would talk a lot about women needing to be like virtuous and clear-minded. She wasn't telling everybody, she was a free love advocate, but she wasn't necessarily, and this is a dubious thing they all do. I've noticed this too, where they'll be like, I'm not saying be slutty. I'm saying do free love, but, do it with a loving heart. And all this flowery language to make it sound like it's better than what it is. But she used all this, Christian principles. She goes to like the book of Enoch. She goes to Genesis and talks about the Nephilim and says, there's tons of precedent for this. It's super normal. It's just these, it's just the uptight Christians who don't want you having angel sex with angels because it's so awesome, and they're just jerks who don't want you to have awesome angel intercourse. So she wrote this whole book about it, and she talked about, nuns having sex with demons because they were forced to be celibate. So this was like her justifying why women need to be sexually liberated, because we'll just look at nuns. They end up having like demon sex, which
what?
I don't know. She alleged that this happened all the time.
I mean, as Orthodox, we are obviously very critical of some of the Catholic mystics who, during the medieval period,
that's who she was referencing.
Yeah, having very erotic understandings, like Joan of Arc, erotic relationships with Christ, and this was part of their mysticism. But in a way, they're taking the same look at the relationship with God that she's looking at, that there is some sort of actual sexual relationship of the transcendent with the terrestrial, with the
yeah. So of course, I'm reading this going, okay, lady, you were having sex with demonic entities.
Yeah, of course.
That's what I'm thinking. So her books were teaching people how to do this, teaching people how to enter this astral plane that she called the borderland. And receive entities to sleep with, both men and women. She said that men did this too. And her argument was like very Gnostic, and she was pretty into some of the Gnostic aspects of theosophy, which is not surprising to me. So her thing was like, no, they're the ones inverting it. We're called to do this. Mary did it. Like the women of old slept with the angels and made giants, and it was awesome. And this is what we should be doing. And it's just the oppressive patriarchy who don't want you to know that you can do this awesome stuff.
Yeah, it sounds like Chase Hager's recent debate with the guy that everybody's wrong except his interpretation, right? Everybody's got it wrong, but I got it right here.
Well, and she did the same thing, just throw out endless Bible verses that, of course, again, this is the problem with like sola scriptura, is thinking that outside of the church, you are going to read the Bible and figure out what it really means. Yeah. This is the danger of it.
Everybody knows what that means. I mean,
yeah. Dude, well, clearly not, because you got something totally different than right. Everybody else did. But her story also, like all of them, has a horrifying and tragic ending. She was a nemesis of Anthony Comstock. If you're familiar with the Comstock laws, he was kind of like the Victorian version of like a McCarthy communist fighter. He was trying to fight all the indecency and like prevent all of the free love and the porn stuff and the things like birth control, diaphragm, stuff like that. He was trying to prevent all of that stuff. So she was like a major target of his, along with Victoria Woodhull and some of these other, I think even Margaret Sanger was trying to get Comstock laws overturned when she was around. So
I'm not surprised. That makes sense.
She ended up getting repeatedly arrested because she would put out all these books about sex magic and different things. And she also would like go to fairs where there were like belly dancers or sexy dancers or like strippers of the day or whatever and defend them. And she would even try to do the dancing and stuff. So she ended up getting repeatedly arrested. And a couple of times they even tried to commit her because obviously this stuff sounds pretty crazy. And she ended up getting herself into enough legal trouble that when she was only like 40 years old, she was looking at like a 5-year jail sentence because she just wouldn't relent on this stuff, no matter how much she got in trouble. So she ended up committing suicide as a result of all this stuff.
Again, the Orthodox stance on suicide is a demonic possession.
Exactly. That's exactly what I thought. I was like, if you are repeatedly allowing demonic entities in like that,
you're going to eventually commit suicide.
Yes. And this happens so much. So many of I do tons of these like bios on feminists and the really extreme ones who do have the occult angle, like Sylvia Plath. They all meet horrific ends. The witch we just talked about in France was burned alive. They said that when they brought her up to burn her, she shoved the priest, wouldn't let him near her.
Wow.
And died like in a fit of rage being burned alive. This woman commits suicide. It's always like a really awful, like violent, terrible ending to these women's lives. So like, I don't know how gender studies people, of course, this is what they do. They read all this and rather than seeing it as like something of a warning, they go, well, just look how oppressed they were. They were fighting for their right to do blah. And everyone was so mean to her. She killed herself. That like, if you guys Google Ida Craddock, that's all you will find. The only opinion you'll find is she was a brave hero who was trying to, say what she believed, and the evil patriarchy came and threatened to put her in jail until she finally killed herself. That's not our worldview, though. We wouldn't look at that and say, hey, this lady's trying to teach people how to have demonic sex magic. Like, and they did. But the thing is, like, she was tolerated for a remarkable period of time. She was like, they really were like, please stop. And she just only got more crazy with it. And, eventually she did kill herself with facing a fairly light sentence. She probably would have gotten off in like a year. Right. But no, she didn't want to do that. But that's not
even, in my estimation, I'm sure yours too, that's not even why she killed her. It's ultimately the demon, and that's what the demons are trying to do by getting us to sin, by getting us to fall deeper and deeper into our temptations. We are falling deeper into a hole of death, and the deeper we get into that hole, the more likely we're going to end up taking our own life. That way nobody else can be held responsible. And that is that is the ultimate win for a demon in the first place. And so thinking about the last couple of years, especially 2020, and the absolute skyrocket rate of suicide, especially amongst young women, which is very uncommon. Usually it's the men that are committing suicide. But in 2020, we saw a very, very equal distribution of suicides between male and female, and especially amongst people under the age of 35. It makes you think, geez, this demonic event itself caused so many people who are already demonically possessed to then off themselves, and it's also creating more people to fall deeper into the porn rabbit hole or the drug addiction to then become more possessed. And so it's like it's the whole reset, the whole slowing of the world from 2020 and putting more chaos, more suffering is going to cause more and more people to fall deeper into their own vices, which is going to lead them to become possessed themselves. And so the whole thing's just feeding back onto each other in a very demonic, inverted way.
Yeah, I totally agree. That's like my exact reading of it too. And it's always amazing to me to read these things from 100, 400, 500 years ago and be like, it's really not that different. I mean, the industrial revolution is what kind of made, like, the technology is what made this possible for it to become the norm, right?
Right. Because
women were like, well, what do we really need a man for? I mean, I can just like drive to work in my car and just work in an office and I can support myself. So like, if I want to have, like, I don't know if you guys remember the video of Chelsea Handler going, being married is stupid. I love not being married because I can have Thai food takeout for dinner every night if I want to. And it's just like,
oh my God.
Yeah, but this is like the thinking is like, why do I need a man for even? Like, I don't even get it. That's like all enabled by technology, but the spirit, the ideology, the magic, the witchcraft has always been there. And it's always been there to kind of prey on women's weaknesses specifically, you know, like when we're young and competing for the highest status males, it's going to exploit that. And when we are older and lonely, it's going to exploit that. It has to be demonic because it preys on whatever your weaknesses and insecurities are and convinces you that you can take matters into your own hands and project your will or gain influence, make a deal, things like that. And the way that things are going right now, with all these younger women being so into this. I just saw a fitness girl I liked the other day saging herself on her Instagram, and I was like, unfollow. Dang it.
Use frankincense.
Well, and she was like, I'm keeping the bad energy. I'm keeping the bad energy away, and I'm manifesting my desire. This is another thing. This is like the way you get successful at anything now, because of Oprah and The Secret and a lot of these gurus telling you that you can manifest your will and you can,
which is allowing people to move into the vortex of this sort of magical hierarchy itself, right? So people then, whether they don't need to be conscious of magic at all or anything we've talked about, but they can fall into The Secret, and now they're getting into a paradigm in which their whole spirituality and their whole self-identity and self-evolution is tied to the manifestation of their desires, which then as those desires potentially come into your existence, there's going to be a spiritual negotiation. So then you get what you want, you go a little deeper, a little deeper, a little deeper. So then they're entering into a sort of vortex, a hierarchical vortex of sin and evil itself. They may be very small, minute at the bottom, but they're faceless anyways, because once you get into that realm, God's the only one that recognizes you in your own identity. The evil one, you are a barcode, you are a number. That is the matrix, right? You have no personhood. And so when you're talking about technology, the technology itself allows for the amplification of will. And so whether you're a girl and you have the will that you want to show everybody your butt and how great your body is, now social media technology allows you to amplify that. You could be doing magic. You could be using sigils. You could be doing whatever it is. The difference between the pre-Christian world or the 16th century with various witches in the Parisian social elite is that technology has now unified a sort of collective global culture and then allows one to amplify their will totally outside the context of their local community, which then gives a false sense of power, which leads back to self-worship, which then leads back to you sort of falling as Lucifer into the sort of satanic, inverted hierarchy of evil.
Yes, exactly. That pretty much nails it. I mean, what am I supposed to say after that? But yes, that's exactly what's happening. And that's why I think it's important for me to talk about these obscure things that probably nobody's heard of. They're interesting stories. I mean, they're interesting stories, but more than that, they're like proof that this is not new. These spirits are not new. It's the same entities. throughout time. This is why you can see such continuity from ancient times all the way through history up till right now, because the same spirits are behind this stuff. Right. And you don't have to look back super far, but you can look back as far as you want to see that this is not new stuff. There were women doing this stuff, 500 years ago, 1,000 years ago, trying to make some kind of a deal. We see this. And the thing about magic is that it does work. That's the thing that makes it so dangerous and tempting for people. And I don't recommend testing it, guys. Don't do that. Yeah. But there's a reason why people do this stuff. So if you're an atheist materialist who thinks this is all silly, or that this is placebo effect, or there's some other scientific explanation of what's going on, it's like, there's a reason why this stuff is so successful. There's a reason why you see rock stars that say they made a deal and then overnight they blew up and now they're the most famous people on earth. And of course, that's another story that never ends well. You almost never see like somebody blow up to worldwide fame and just have like a great virtuous life that ends well. Right. Maybe somewhere, but almost never. It's really, Susan really Boyle. Rare. Yeah. Well, she basically bowed out of everything I know, right? Yeah. Didn't she? Yeah.
I was coming up with a dumb example. I was just totally kidding. But no, I think you're absolutely right. And that's why, just the idea of something to be too good to be true, right? This is true for us. Now, we're not practicing magic, but like relationships, offers, opportunities that come in your life, if it's too good to be true, it probably is. And so when people skyrocket to massive fame out of nowhere, that is another exchange of energy. What are you going to do with all that energy? Unless you have a foundation, meaning some type of tradition or religious, spiritual foundation, not even getting into the differences between those. If you have no foundation, that is going to catapult you into more chaos. And so wherever you're at before the fame is now going to be amplified, just like the technologies does, because it itself is a sort of distribution of energy. That then the fame is another focusing of energy. The money's a focusing of energy. It's all energy exchange. And what are you going to do with all that energy? Well, if I got vices, my vices ratchet up from 2 to now 7 or 8.
Yeah, that's so true. And I feel like this happens with so many of these girls. Like I've just seen the same story so much over the last couple of years where it's like, I'm debating a girl who's got an OnlyFans and she's very pretty and she's half my age. And we're having this exchange, we're debating things. And it's like, it's really clear they've never really thought about it.
Yeah.
But that's like the common thing. And the problem is that it's like, even the guys I talk to, they've just always heard it told one way. They've always heard this same story of like, women used to be oppressed and life was terrible for them. And they had no say in anything. And they had to live in horrible abusive marriages and they grew up, being abused. And it was just so terrible and so awful. And then one day suffragettes came and they saved the day and now women can vote. I had a lady tell me that my right to homeschool was given to me by women voting.
Yeah, I remember I saw that when you did show.
I was like, I don't know where to start. But it encapsulated the worldview so well for me, right? And I don't even have any thing mean to say to that poor lady because she really is just operating off of this false idea that has been thrown at her probably her whole life. So for me to suggest that is wrong and that she has the story wrong is like, when you tell somebody the earth is flat, right? It's just like, what? You're instantly called a crazy person and nobody believes it because I'm like, no, it's not really like that. There were some things maybe where life was harder for women back then, but it's definitely not a cakewalk for them now. I mean, look around. Right. Do women just look like they're killing it? I mean, even people like Beyonce and Lady Gaga. Lady Gaga is constantly on the verge of a mental breakdown, and it's like,
and she talks about it. I mean, and you can see that chick is emotionally, I would say spiritually disturbed.
Yeah, big time. And a lot of them, like Selena Gomez has this big thing coming out on Apple TV November 4th about all of her mental health struggles. Britney Spears is, Jamie and I have done all this stuff on Britney because she's just out there publicly having continual malfunctions and mental breaks and programming breaks and all this kind of thing. And it's like, I ask all the time, like, are you sure this is better? Are you sure? And then when I do debates, I say, please prove it. You should have data. You should have statistics. You should have evidence that things are so much better. Yet every metric we look at, whether we look at divorce, marriage rates, rates of childhood, obesity, mental illness, and addiction, we look at adult mental illness, obesity, and addiction, like everything you would probably use to measure well-being, not pleasure, but well-being, right? Because pleasure is like a fleeting, oh my gosh, my Jordan Peterson hands. What the heck was that?
Hey, I'm like that. My hands are all over the place.
But it's like everything we would use to measure well-being is not better.
No.
Where's all your stats? Where's all your data? Where's all your studies saying, oh, women used to hate life and now they're doing great. They're just killing it with everything. It's like, no, fetal alcohol syndrome is way up. Alcoholism among women is the highest it's ever been recorded.
Yeah.
Mental illness is the highest. Depression is the highest.
Yep.
Health problems are the worst they've been. It's just like
divorce rates, highest. Lack of relationship satisfaction, the highest. Loneliness, the highest. Like
it's really bad for men, but it's also bad for women.
Well,
it's
and men
across the board.
Men are less of a social creature than women. So not that we aren't social creatures. We all Homo sapiens are social creatures.
Right.
But the monk or the man that lives on the edge of the forest, that's a little bit more normal than a woman, again, the old hag, again, the witch. It's more against nature for a woman to be totally separated, divorced from society, because the way that she is a woman is in relationship to other people and how she cares and serves and cares for. I mean,
in fact, that's one of the things that's most often cited in divorces is that, so women think of everything relationally. Men tend to be more logic and rational. Like they assume, ladies, that if we are complaining that we want something fixed, that we want the problem solved, when 90% of the time we're just venting, right? We're venting. And men are like, okay, should I fix it? You want me to fix it, right? And we're like, no, we just want to, like, I need to relate to you and I need you to relate to me. And we're very relational that way, whereas men are not so much. So this idea that we're all exactly the same and that the differences in the genders can be totally explained by the patriarchy oppressing the women for all these years. It's just, it doesn't hold any water. There's tons of data to refute it.
Right.
Jordan Peterson, who I just mentioned, actually, that was one of the things I did like about him early on, was he used to talk about that a lot. Now he doesn't as much, but he was right about that. The data shows that in countries where we try to be so egalitarian and erase gender, that women actually become more feminine and men actually become more masculine. It just totally backfires. We've been trying to force women into STEM and engineering since I was born, and they're no more interested in it now than they were then, really.
Right.
I mean, so it's like, this is a lot of what I do too, is I just tell women, it's okay. It's okay. You don't have to be a doctor. You don't have to be a dentist.
Nope.
You don't have to go to engineering school. You do not have to finish your master's degree. Because they will write me. They'll write me and say this.
I'm a successful woman. I have a liberal arts master's degree. Okay.
I know. Well, they'll write me and they'll be like, all I want to do is get married and have kids. Like, I want it so much with my whole heart. But I know my parents will be upset. My friends won't understand. I'll get kicked out of my social circle. I have no idea what to do.
God bless those girls.
A large part of what I'm trying to do is just make being a normal woman cool again, make it acceptable again, make motherhood cool. We need to venerate the Theotokos. Maybe if we bring her back, instead of having kicked her out when the Reformation happened and removing her from society, removing any sort of real high standard epitome of femininity and womanhood and motherhood, right?
Yep.
All we had left was men. So the women, it's not a coincidence that all the women decided, well, I need to be a priest or a deaconess or a pastor, because it's like they no longer had a woman of high status, the mother of God, the queen of heaven, and say, ooh, yeah, that sounds good.
Right.
I want to be like her. I want to strive toward her example. The Protestants just removed her.
Well, and so here is something while you're talking about that popped in my head, and we can bat it around and see what you think. I hadn't thought about this. It just came to me. But the catalyst for this whole phenomenon that we're talking about, the horrific phenomenon of women and sort of assuming a sort of magical witchy type role in society is the exchange. You're just talking about all the mental health, all the loneliness, all the depression, suicide rates, alcoholism. What is it that these women are exchanging? What is the lure? What is the bait? And I think it is attention, right?
Yes.
So what it is, it's not why they're becoming fake, why they are willing to go through these links, why the young girl is upset is that women are now in a world where it's all about attention. And so then getting the fake boobs or whatever it is, it's a way to acquire more and more attention, which is essentially, that is the real commodity. I mean, what we do, you write books, I make live streams, I'm dealing in the commodity of attention. That's the only way that I can be successful. You can be successful. And so then women themselves are becoming the commodity for attention. My commodity isn't me. It's hopefully my ideas and the things that I can provide people, but women becoming the commodity and wanting to be the product of attention, then they are wanting to be the Cardi B, the Beyonce, these people who already, again, I would agree with some of the research of Jamie, that they have already done these selling of one's soul. They already are a sort of performative witch, and they are casting spells then when they're performing on stage and getting all these young girls to, oh, I want to look like the hooker with the stripper boots. I want that attention, right? Why are they willing to distort themselves or do potentially things that they maybe don't want to do? Maybe they don't want to sleep with all those guys. Maybe they don't want to go to the clubs all the time. But why do they do it? For the attention, because then when they get the attention, that then makes it feel like it's all worth it. And that's an immediate sense because it's, men, we're just trying to, sex is usually the one that's driving us. But I think when you think about the women more so, it's about the attention. And that's why even having multiple partners, they break the capacity. I think it's after like 6 partners, your ability to pair bond is like severely hampered as a woman. So if they've already slept with, say, more than 6 men, it's already, they can have sex with people and not have that serotonin, that dopaminergic connection with the man. So because of that, what do they want? They're just wanting the attention. They're wanting the attention for the sex that night. They're wanting the attention at the club. Okay, I don't want your attention anymore. Ghost, now I need more attention. And so the constant pursuit of attention is really the lure for these girls to become this sort of archetype. And I think the meme for trad men saying no e-girls ever, when I date, for me personally, if I look at a girl's Instagram, if she has more than 1,000 followers, I'm very leery. It's a turnoff for me because then I start to speculate how much of the attention seeking is this person interested in. At the same time, I want somebody who wants to help me with my business. And so they may be on camera, they may have an online profile, but I want to make sure them as a person, their number one value and pursuit of life is not the sole attention of other people without the exchange of an actual good or commodity or something useful, not your body.
Yes, those girls are the ones who will say things like, well, if she cheated, obviously there was something she wasn't getting out of the relationship, so it's the man's fault. And this was another thing that I tweeted where somebody showed like a woman doing, I think she was twerking, something crazy a woman was doing. And the guy said, honest question, why do women do this? And I answered and I said, attention. Attention is women's currency. And I'm not saying I'm immune to that. What I'm saying is like, I was very lucky and very fortunate. I grew up in an era before social media. And when I grew up, it's not that I was not a cute girl. I guess I was a cute enough girl, but my self-worth and my identity was built around what like I could do. I had a lot of artistic skills. I was really smart. I was like a very nurturing, caring type of a person. So my identity was built around those things, not around my appearance or what I looked like. So even when I got older and I was like maybe 18, 19, and I did start to get a lot of male attention, it kind of made me uncomfortable. I was like, it took me a while to even like get used to male attention because I just didn't develop my identity around it. And I thank God for that every day because it's just such a blessing to me that I didn't. And then the other thing that happens is when you have babies, that oxytocin you're talking about, there's a reason. And this is why girls get this way with their dog or their cat. We're really made to bond with babies. When you are nursing a baby, the oxytocin release is like through the roof. You'll almost feel like people will see the baby and say that the baby is milk drunk. If you ever see a baby nursing and they're like, the mom will also get some of that where you feel like really relaxed, you feel kind of sleepy. That's why a lot of times you just fall asleep with the baby, you just fall asleep. You get that bonding hormone all the time from a nursing infant. And I think that helps satiate this need for the external validation and attention. The oxytocin coming from simps liking your stuff or sending you $5 or whatever it is. And I think we tell women not to have kids until they're like 35. So it's not shocking that 20-year-olds are looking for that oxytocin because something inside them biochemically is saying, let's make babies, let's have a baby. And then we get all this oxytocin, all this bonding hormone. And I think if you go until you're 40 without any of that, or only getting it from external validation through the internet or from guys hitting on you, you can just see how that would be so incredibly bad for your physical health, your mental health, your spiritual health. So yeah, attention is a big deal for women. And again, I'm not bashing women when I say this.
It's a good thing to have. That's clearly a disposition that's necessary.
Yes.
It's just been hijacked. And what we're talking about is this hijacking of the human body itself. I mean, men have been hijacked. It's natural for us to want to have sex. It's natural for us to pursue beautiful things. I was speaking with a guy today at church, and he was a former Protestant, him and his wife, beautiful family, now going to the Orthodox Church. He did his research and led his family. And he was talking about how growing up Protestant, even all his friends that are still Protestant and some people that are ministers, that when he goes there, the men are essentially dragged in by their wives. Their wives do everything at these Protestant churches, and the men kind of just sit in the pews and wait till it's over. They'll talk to each other at coffee hour, and that's about it. And we were talking about how the lack of beauty, men are attracted to beauty. That's one of the reasons why we love women so much, is because men aren't beautiful. Like a man who's good looking and maybe in great shape, it's a different thing. It's not, you don't describe it as beautiful. It's like a virtue of strength or a virtue of, maybe being handsome, but it's not the same thing as like a beautiful woman. A beautiful woman, men and women look at her figure, her beauty, her face. Wow, she's pretty. Wow, she's beautiful. And men love beauty. And so I think that's one of the reasons why you go to a Protestant church. Now, there's multiple reasons to this, but this is just maybe one little factor that I think maybe can tie into our conversation. But men love beautiful things. And so you go to a beautiful church, you go to an Orthodox church, you see an Orthodox liturgy, you see the ornateness, there's beauty there. And there's something that's very appealing for men who aren't beautiful, but we're like drawn towards beauty. That's why we're so drawn towards women. And then sex and all this different fecundity, life. And so then the beauty of the church brings us into the church, the mother, and we can then re-encounter the source of life, God himself.
Yeah. And I mean, Andy says this all the time. He's like, I could not drag him kicking and screaming to a Protestant church. He went with me like twice, and he felt like, it's like I heard a girl who became atheist say, I grew up in like an evangelical, like rock mega church, rock band church. And I thought I really loved Christianity. And then I went to like a concert once and realized, oh, I just like the feeling of live music. Like the,
I just like electric drum sets.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why these mega churches with the rock band, like I know women who go to it for that. They just love the feeling, and they do this and they do this. And I would try to bring Andy to that, and he'd just be like, it didn't work at all. And the first time we went to an Orthodox church, he literally walked in. We walked in and liturgy had already kind of started, and the choir was chanting and they're sensing. And this beautiful church, the church we go to is like gorgeous. And he walked in and he smelled the smells and he heard the sounds and he looked around and he just looked at me and he was just like, yeah, this is what worship is like. To him, it was like, yes, this is what it should be like. This makes sense to me. I will come here. I will do this. Like, this has to be right. He just instantly liked it. So I think that that's true. And it doesn't hurt that the churches are beautiful and the chanting is
Right.
beautiful and it's such a sensory experience. But Protestants removed that on purpose. And I
Yes.
do talk about that in my book as well, about how like the Quakers, the Anabaptists, the really strict, like Puritan types of Protestants, they didn't even have a cross in their churches and they called them meeting houses.
Oh my gosh.
They didn't even want to call it a church.
What?
Because they were so anti-church, and it was like that's where when you see like Amish people or Quakers, they just wear gray or black or brown, and the churches weren't churches, they were meeting houses, and they were super plain. You couldn't even have a cross because it might be idolatrous, because like it's like an icon. They just went so extreme with it and removed all of that stuff. They took away the monasticism, they took away Mary, they took away the beauty, they took
away the beauty and emotion. Though you're thinking about like a rock band Protestant service, beauty and emotionalism are not the same thing. But I think for some people they conflate them as together. So they go to a Protestant and maybe they have a beautiful Hillsong. Oh my gosh, I'm just brought to tears. And this is the beauty of the service. No, beauty is an aesthetic thing. Beauty is an objective thing, and not your Hillsong song. And so you see Protestantism, but then you see our culture, generally speaking, look how it's become less and less beautiful and more emotional. And the emotionalism is how it leads people, whether it be men or women. And so it's like we are then being put in a place where the emotional outpouring towards beauty, that's the point of poetry. Yeah. And so the point of poetry is to the expression of beauty to some degree, whether it be about love or nature. And so our culture is so unbeautiful that then people are sort of resorting in a sort of emotional outlet for the pursuit of beauty itself. So then there could be sex, it could be drugs, it could be hedonism, because that's how I'm gonna encounter the beautiful through ecstasy and like personal emotionalism.
Yeah. And I think that's why, like, you'll hear men say a lot, like, again, always talking about my husband. Sorry, everyone, you're just going to have to deal with it. He'll see a woman that, like, I will think is like an exotic, pretty, like, hot chick or something. And he'll go, eh. And I'm like, really? And he goes, yeah, she just has like a mean face. Like, to him, he likes to see somebody who looks like pleasant, nice, happy, joyful, like that type of woman. And he's like, I'd rather they had a couple of wrinkles and like, whatever, than this like crazy alien face, nipped and tucked and injected, resting bitch face type of woman that is everywhere now. And that's like the standard. And it's not objectively beautiful. Like, beauty does have objective standards like symmetry and balance and contrast and things like that. And when you just make women look like these crazy cartoon drag queen versions of what a woman is,
blurring the distinction between a transgender and a female.
Yeah, and I think that's on purpose.
It's
if
on
you guys
purpose,
have read,
absolutely, and that's where that commodification process. Women are falling victim because it's all artificial. So the commodity now is who's ever being put up for fame and attention. So we then look at who's getting the attention, various female celebrities. Now it's like RuPaul and all these different people, and it's like they're blending the differentiation between these two so that oh my God, you're not going to sleep with a transgender woman? What are you, a homophobe? Like, are you a bigot? Are you a Nazi? Like, no, I prefer not to be with men.
Right. But like, I mean, so this is another aspect of this stuff that's so insidious in the spell casting is like, in all of the fairy tales, whether it's like Snow White, The Little Mermaid, Cinderella, pretty much all the fairy tales you can think of.
Right.
The old woman is always a witch doing a spell because she wants the youth and beauty.
Yes, the old woman is always doing that.
Yeah. And so I think there's like an aspect to this whole thing where they don't really want you to look like you have that youthful, healthy femininity and girliness. It's like, because they don't look like Andy has said this too. He's like, how come there's 15-year-olds that look 40 and 40-year-olds that look 20? And like, what is going on? It's so weird.
And it's like magic. It's a deception of appearance. It is a magical act.
And you really, it skews everything so much. It just makes it to where you almost don't trust your own eyes with things.
Definitely. This is a bit of a tangent, but related. Side note, I've gone on multiple dates with people I've met locally through Instagram or online, and you meet these girls in person, and they've had filters on every damn photo they've ever posted, because when you meet in person, they do not look like all these photos they sent you or they post, or it's like, what? That's not even you. Like your skin, the facial structure, what the hell?
Yeah, filtering everything to death and modifying everything. And it's like, there's nothing wrong with your normal human face. Look, I've got kind of crooked teeth. I have wrinkles starting here. My forehead is shiny right now. My hair is kind of doing its own thing. I'm getting a little bit of this because I'm in my 40s. That's okay. I'm in my 40s. This is my other favorite thing, is when people try to dunk on me by like being like, ha ha ha, you're not even like a sexy 20-year-old with an OnlyFans. Ha ha ha. I'm like, okay, I'm in my 40s and I've had 5 kids. Yeah. What are you expecting? Like, that's not my goal, and it shouldn't be my goal. But at the same time, it's not like Andy is like, ugh, gross. You don't even look like those Instagram influencers. Normal men that I know in my life don't expect me to look like that. No. And I'll hear people be like, well, the men are and I'm like, the men don't want it. The men will respond to whatever butt you're shaking in their face. Yeah, that's true. But the men were not the ones who like demanded that we all start doing this crazy body modification stuff.
It's the people that are put up in front of through the media that get the attention, and then the women want the attention, so they try to look like the people that are put before them.
And we're told that those are the high status women. So like they see Kylie Jenner with some basketball star, they see a Kardashian with Kanye West or something, and they go, oh, I have to be like that to get the high status man. Because we're competitive. Women have to compete for men, for the higher status men that have more resources. Right. So if you constantly shove that at us and say, this is what you have to do to be competitive in the market, we'll do whatever we have to do as younger women to like meet that supposed standard that's being thrust at us. And it is a spell. And this is like ancient stuff that women will sell their soul for like a little attention from King Louis XIV. Okay. Right. Like that's the moral of the story.
And that's the problem with, like you're talking about, the inability for people to accept their own aging is an inability to care about something beyond, again, attention. Because why does the 40-year-old, the 50-year-old women have to look like she's 27? Well, I don't get the same sexual attention. People don't look at me, my photos. Well, that's the exact problem. That's why your life is going to be more and more meaningless. Yeah. And you're going to become that old hag. Doesn't matter if you look however you look.
If you had 5 kids constantly clamoring for your attention, right? I'm not saying you don't still want your husband to find you attractive or that you shouldn't try. Of course we want that. You know, if you're going to be with the same guy your whole life, it's a nice thing to do to respect the fact that he's willing to only be with you for the rest of his life and try to maintain yourself to a healthy degree. That's good. That's fine. But this weird, crazy body mod, plastic surgery, go to the ends of the earth to try to stay forever 25 or whatever it is. That's crazy.
Forever 21, right? That's where I go shop.
Yeah. And it's like, if your life was so full with not only responsibilities and obligations, but the beautiful blessings that come from you fulfilling those responsibilities and obligations, you will have like a fullness of joy in your life that won't make you feel like you have to seek out crazier and crazier things to get attention or validation and stuff like that. So nothing I do is out of hatred for women or anything like that. Sometimes I get frustrated and it might come off that way because I'm just like, help me out here. Just come on. But it's because it's very sad to see. And I feel like I'm just looking around me all the time going, no, don't do that. No, don't do that. And I have daughters that have friends that I love. You know, I get very attached to my kids' friends. And, you know, my oldest one's like, I rescued another one of my friends from starting an OnlyFans today, Mom. You know, she's like, had to talk multiple friends off the OnlyFans ledge at 21.
Once they go down that, it's going to be with them forever. And,
I know.
And it's a permanent scar on your soul, whether just like having an abortion. Maybe somebody may never know that you had an abortion. Maybe you did it in private and only a couple people know, but you know, and God knows, and that weighs on you big time.
Yeah.
And you need an outlet of repentance. You need a place for confession. You need a spiritual family, and to get that weight off of you so that you can then realign yourselves with God and move back towards these sort of more traditional roles as we've been talking about.
Yeah. And I know that there's probably tons of guys watching this right now feeling like a little hopeless and like black-pilled about women and being like, well, this doesn't sound good for me. But if you kind of understand this, everything that Patrick's been talking about and I've been talking about, if you kind of understand what's causing this, where the mindset comes from, where the paradigm comes from, I think it does make it a little easier to navigate a relationship with a modern woman, where you're kind of like, okay, I think I might know a little bit about like why she's behaving this way or why she has this expectation. And I think at least it gives you some sort of an insight and a way to deal with it.
Yeah.
Rather than like how most people are just kind of floating through clueless going, I have no idea what to do or what's going on.
Or the MGTOW. And I would say that's probably not as prevalent, obviously, within the Orthodox community because we promote families. And so as you have highlighted that maybe other women find you a bit overly critical of women, I've been accused of being overly critical of men, which I don't think is possible. I think if you were born a man, you've signed, God's providence signed you up that you take responsibility for every damn thing in your life. Could be you had terrible parents, could be you were born poor, could be for whatever thing. God forbid these things happen to you. But if you're an adult male, once you turn 18, there's nobody there to save you. There is no fallback system like there is for women, generally speaking. A woman can find some man somewhere that as a sort of fallback, and men, we don't have that. So in regards to a man maybe listening to this and feeling a bit black-pilled based on contemporary women, modern women, rightfully so. However, if you are a Christian and you believe in God, then the more you become the fullest potential man that you could be, and I mean all aspects, you obviously getting close with God, your spiritual life, but then your financial life. Are you even in a position to take care of a woman? Are you a man that's even in a position to fulfill the role that a traditional man's supposed to fulfill? You need to get all that stuff in order. And as you pursue those things, at least this is my belief, and maybe I'll be the test, and maybe I'll come back to you guys in 3 years and say, it doesn't work, it's hopeless. But my belief is that the more that I work on myself and the more that I do the very small things that I know, if God was here next to me, said, well, you got to do that. Well, you have to do this. You have to do this. The more I do all those things, the more of a sort of assurance I have that the right person will be there when I'm the right person for the right person. And
right.
So the way out, then I feel very hopeful that it's not that there's a lot of traditional pure women. There aren't. And that's the reality. However, we as men need to become high quality so that through God's providence, if it's meant to be, it can't not be. And so then God can bring all that stuff together. So the more we as men become warriors and soldiers for God in the world, I have full faith that the more Orthodox families, the more babies we're going to have, the more people then that can instill these same values that we're talking about to children. Because one of the things that I always say to women to see how they feel about is that I want my daughters, if we have daughters, that they're going to be married off as virgins. That's in my perspective as a man, as a father, and the way that I look at history, that is now my responsibility, and that is not even a question. And so if a woman said, whoa, hey, when they turn 16, 18, we can talk about next. No. What are you talking about?
I know.
What are you talking about? I don't want her to end up in the position that we're at now.
I know. And what you just said is super important. And Jamie and I, when we had our discussion on relationships, which that premiered last night, we kind of said the same thing, which was like, so we know that women, no matter how much they try to tell you, they're a strong, independent boss bitch or whatever it is they're trying to tell you, Yeah, maybe. And they might be competent, and they might be smart, and they might have a business, and they might be able to do a lot of things, but we still want attention and validation from men. And there's a reason why we're out here spending our hard-earned money on, you know, the butt plumpers and the lip fillers and all this other crazy stuff. If men really take the initiative, because I know when you guys were offered the sexual revolution, it sounded awesome, right? Like,
yeah.
We get all the sex and none of the providing and protecting nonsense that's so hard, right?
Control.
Like that's
absolutely. I remember in high school
awesome.
making jokes about, oh, you know, having girls, you know, which girls in school are on birth control, then you don't have to use a condom and all that different stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know that sounded like a good deal.
Like fun, yeah.
Clearly now, I think almost all you guys watching would agree it wasn't a good deal for you.
Yeah, it was a bad exchange.
And you're not happy with the result. So now the men are going to be the ones who can turn the tide, because the more like higher status attractive men start rewarding good feminine behavior and wifing those girls, the other girls notice. They will follow suit. They will be like, oh, acting like an OnlyFans whore doesn't get me those guys. It only gets me these simp guys. I don't want them. We can turn the tide. I'm not saying it's going to be easy at all.
No, I don't. It won't. And here's the thing too. We as Christians, I was speaking about this last night with a buddy. We as Christians are not hopeful about the future. I'm optimistically pessimistic. So I'm very optimistic about my life as a Christian, my potential unfolding, finding a wife to set up a family, my business. But the world itself is, in my estimation, and I think people who take the Bible seriously, it's only going to get darker from this point forward. It's only going to get worse. This idea that we're going to do something or vote the right senator into, Dr. Oz. Well, maybe they help at temporary, just brief instances, but the trajectory on is total annihilation. Like we're going towards the end times, whether that is in 5 years or 500 years, doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
So this thing here, we're not here to turn the world around. We are on the Titanic. It's sinking, and I feel like Orthodox Christians generally speaking, what we're trying to do is we're getting people on the dinghies, on the lifeboats, as many people as possible. The ship is already sinking. The world is coming to an end. Like it's only going to get worse. Here, follow me. There's lifeboats this way and this way and this way, and so that's what we're trying to do. And the more men that take their life incredibly seriously. And to die with regrets as a man, it's like, that's one of the worst things that I could imagine. Like, I don't want that. And that's something that Father Michael Butler talked about in the last stream, where we were talking about masculinity and how it wasn't until he was 50 some years old that he got into bodybuilding and lifting and like building muscle. And now he sees how it's transformed his personality, how he feels, how he interacts with people, how people interact with him. And he's talking about how much regret he has. Now, that's a small little regret that he's also making up for by doing it and then telling young men. But the seriousness as a man, you take your life, it's only more profitable. Like the more responsibility, the more blame you put on yourself, and then you actively overcome that by working against it. That only makes your life more meaningful. It's more of an adventure. You become more of a man. You're going to find that woman eventually. And that is how we don't transform the world, but the way that we can get more people on more lifeboats is for every single man to become the man that they could be.
And guess what? Good women, everybody's like, how do I find a good woman? Good women see that, and we find it absolutely irresistible. It doesn't even really matter that much. Like, what you could be born with an unfortunate face and going bald or whatever. But if we see you doing that, it's like very magnetic to women. It's like something in us goes, make a baby with that guy. You know what I mean? It's like, so fulfill your potential, like really go after it, take it super seriously, and really, really strive to just better yourself. You don't have to be perfect, just better.
Yeah, there's no
just
perfect, and there's no end
a little
point.
Better.
There's
right.
no end point.
It never, you're never done.
And they thought that this as a man taking and you don't have to be a bodybuilder. You don't have to lift weight all the time. It's just taking care of it. And they're like, yeah, well, that's going to be not, once I meet my girl, but I don't want to make that my life. And it's like, bro, you you signed up for the wrong gig then, because there is no stopping from this point forward. There's no stopping with your prayers. There's no stopping with your fitness. There's no stopping protecting and providing for the people you care about. That is your self-sacrifice from this point forward. And that is you dying to the world. And you need to step up now or get left behind, because we don't need you on our team. Like we don't, and that's where these Orthodox guys do not be coming to me talking about women or complaining about women, and you look like shit and you're not taking care of yourself. Like it's just the simplest things. As a man, the bar is not that high. Just dress cleanly, like have good hygiene and work on yourself. And there is going to be a woman that is going to match you, and God's providence can work, right? It's like this idea that I'm unhappy and I pray to Saint Xenia for it and I'm not getting my wife. It's like, dude, stop focusing on God giving you some, and start focusing on what you can do for God and become a better person. And it's going to happen. Yeah.
And like I do bodybuilding stuff too. And I
like bodybuilding, but I don't tell everybody they have to do it. They do need to do something.
But what I like about it is, and I tell people this all the time, it's really more for me about my mind than it is like picking up heavy stuff or having muscles or whatever. I can do those things, but it's more like daily overcoming your own crap excuses for why you don't want to work or why you can't, you're not feeling like it. It really teaches you like mentally to stop putting up with your own crap for the most part and get stuff done and work on yourself. And there's always room for improvement, and having like a growth mindset. I know that's like really cringe new age thing, but you should always be thinking that way. Be satisfied and grateful for all your current blessings, but also realize that you can always be doing better. This is why the saints, every saint will really, really emphasize humility, and always knowing that if you think you're done and you've made it and you're good now, that you're wrong, and that you're in pre-lest, and that you need humility. And if God loves you, he will knock you off that high horse real fast, and you don't want that.
Right.
So keep yourself humble and look at what you should be doing, and don't be going to witches trying to get potions or make deals to get what you want.
Right.
Assume that you always have a lot more work to do on yourself, and that you should be focused on that. And that once you are deserving and ready for certain things, God will send them your way.
And that's the thing. I try to, as a man at least, and I saw somebody agreed in the chat, it's and I can't say what it's like to be a woman or trying to find a husband. I don't know what that's like, but I know as a man that when you pray and you do these small things and you feel like you are on the track that God wants you to be on, there's nothing more empowering and there's nothing more liberating, because and then that's that momentum. And that's the hardest thing for us guys to get going, is the momentum in our lives. You had to build the momentum by doing the difficult discipline of making it a habit. But after a few months, the momentum is there. That momentum is going to carry you out of bed. That momentum is going to carry you to work on your job, or it's going to carry you to do your fitness stuff or your diet, whatever it is.
Yeah.
You have to establish the habits and the discipline, and it's going to set you free. And if you're praying and you are submitting to God and you're going to church and you take it seriously, like the church and the praying thing is just like the weights. It's part of the same package. And if you're doing all that stuff, you're going to get a feeling, especially in your relationship with God, that nothing can be taken from you. And if that's the case, you have nothing to lose and only something to gain. And then it's like, well, what else would I want other than to work, other than to grind? Because I can only gain from this point forward. Because if I die today or I die tomorrow, I die tonight when I'm sleeping, I know for a fact that I've been on my grind and I've been doing it, and I'm not going to regret.
No, Jamie, you guys, Jamie is a fantastic role model as a woman. I feel like I just love her. And I think she's so amazing because she's really smart. She's really wise. She's very feminine, but she also, like, she will tell you how it is too, like I will. And she said, you can choose one kind of pain or the other, either the pain of discipline or the pain of regret.
Yep.
So, and that's so true. That's like such a true thing in life. And it's the same thing with relationships and marriage. It's hard to stay married, but it's also really hard to get a divorce. So it's like, do you want to go your own way and have what you want and get the divorce, or do you want to submit and do for the other person, whether regardless? Like, that's the biggest thing, is you don't look at the other person and be like, well, I will do A, B, and C once he does A, B, and C first, right? Both people do that all the time nowadays, where it's like, well, I would be nice to her if she would do this for me. And the woman says the same thing. And it's like, that's why marriage is an ascetic path, just like monasticism. That's why we're only given those two choices, because those are your ways for salvation. If you're not going to be a monastic and you're going to be married, don't be thinking it's easier.
Right.
You're still going to have to sacrifice a lot and really care more for the other person.
Yeah, you have to have somebody who's going to want to get to salvation together, because the householder life, the married life, is you're in the world, right? Mm-hmm. And that's what I've talked about. People, I can't believe you got on TikTok. Don't you know that's yeah, bro, dude, I know, dude. I'm there because my job is to be deeper into the matrix. Like, I got to go deeper into the matrix, because what I am is a gateway drug to get people to go talk to an actual priest, to go to an actual liturgy, to go to the lifeboats, right?
Yeah.
I'm just trying to point people to the lifeboats. And if people are down in the basement, then I need to go down to the basement and tell them, hey, the lifeboats are out here. You guys should check it out if you want to live.
Yeah. And that's why, like, people will often wrongly assume that I homeschool my kids to like totally isolate them from the outside world. Now, there's some truth to the fact that because they are children, I'm not going to put them in a state-run institution where they have no protection. I'm not there. They're little kids. They can't protect themselves, right? So if there's trans stuff being thrown at them, if there's other ideologies being thrown at them, if there's actual physical violence, which is a huge concern in public schools these days,
right,
I'm sending them there completely unprotected because of the way that public schools work. Teachers can't really intervene or do much. Neither can administrators. It's kind of like a prison in a lot of ways. It can be very dangerous, and you're sending the kid there completely defenseless. But I don't homeschool them to totally isolate them. We talk a lot about the world, why it's the way it is, how it's the way it is. And the reason we go to church and the reason we're Christian is so that we can learn how to navigate this world without falling, into damnation and things like that. Like, they know a lot about how to navigate things. That's the point. Like, that's my job. My job is to teach them how to get through this life without falling into apostasy or despair or temptation and things like that. And they end up being these little lights to the world who tell their friends, don't do OnlyFans. No, don't do that. Right. Or, other things. And so.
But that is only possible because of the relationship that you and Andrew have.
Yeah.
So because of
100%
a Christ-based, centered, again, I don't know the details of your guys' relationship, but I assume from my friendship with both of you guys, Christ is present. You guys are honest with each other. You do have a strong relationship built on integrity and principles that are timeless. And so because you have that is the fertile ground. That is the foundation for those girls. Then you can implant the wisdom for them, and they can see why it's fruitful and why, mom and dad's home's a little bit better than, my friend Stacy's home. And that has an incredible powerful effect on the children, because it's again, that gets back to the partner thing that I talked about. Like, you have to find, and that's what I'm looking for, and I'm sure all the men and women in our chat, we're looking for somebody who wants to go on this journey of salvation together, because I get weak, the other person's going to get weak. I don't need somebody to virtue signal to me about how much more pious they are if I fall or I get into my own temptations. I need somebody who's just there with me. We're a team, and we're going to work together. And then when we have children, we're a team. So they're telling the game plan. The game plan is, feminism and the global degeneracy and all. That's the game plan. They're then being educated to be part of the team. And the team then is the church. The team is the other parishioners. We're on a team, and we got to share the playbook with our kids, but we got to make sure that we're with partners that, again, are good partners for us, that are good teams together.
Yeah, 100%. I love the team analogy. I hadn't thought of that. I'm keeping that one, Patrick. It's a good one.
At least that's how I think about it, because the way that I've prayed to God, and I don't even know how it's all going to work or if I, win, whatever, but the reason I kind of keep my head down and not focus on it too much is that I need somebody who's going to be interested in what I do. And so I know that Church of the Eternal Logos, my online stuff, that's going to be the way I meet the person that I'm supposed to be with, because they have to be on the same team and be going on the same mission, and they can help me with it. So again, we're on a team, because I feel like I need a part. Like right now I'm doing it fine, but as this thing grows, as I want to build a family, I need a teammate, and I need a teammate that understands that, okay, the roles on the team and how we function as a team together, and that we all as a team have the same goals, and we're all going to try to move to the same place together.
Yeah, and you can't both be the captain of the team.
Exactly.
And I hear this is something people say all the time, just like, it has to be a partnership. And it's like, no, that's the wrong way to think about it. It's just the wrong way to think about it. It doesn't mean I'm inherently less valuable than Andrew, or he's inherently better than me or anything like that. But it's like, my role on the team is not to be the team captain. That's his role. Now because we have such a good relationship, he often, almost all the time, asks what I think and wants to know how I feel about stuff. And he'll run stuff past me, and I do the same thing. But we still get stuff wrong. We still have our moments where, I'll be acting like a brat, or he'll be a jerk. It's like, we're human beings.
Human beings. That's what we're signing up for. That's why, again, you do that with your teammates. You may yell at them during a game.
The foundation that's there, though, like if we do get in an argument or we're getting crabby with each other or something, it's at this point, 15 years in, it's not very long before one or both of us, like it might be an hour before one or both of us is like, you know what, I shouldn't have said that. That was just like a bad thing to say to you. And I didn't even really mean it. I was just being a jerk, or I was having a bad day. It doesn't take forever. We don't like dig in our heels and stay mad for like weeks or anything. Cause it's like, the further you get into it too, you have built things together. You've been a successful team. You have a good track record where it's like, we have really overcome some stuff and gotten some places together, and gotten each other through things. So you have that to fall back on. So in a way, it does get easier. It's just that you're always going to be human, and you'll never get to the point where you have like a perfect trad wife, guys. You're always going to have to kind of shepherd your wife. It's part of the deal for you. Right. And part of the deal for us is we're going to always have those times where we want to be bossy, or we want to impose our will, or maybe we think we can do something more competently, or we know we can, right? But it doesn't really matter. That's not like, do you really want to sacrifice the piece of your relationship to prove that like you could be more organized about the bills or something? Like, it's all that stuff kind of starts to fade away, and you start to just have this underlying foundation that gets you through bad days, and it's awesome. So it's like, again, put in all the work early on, and it's not that the work ever goes away, but it does get easier because you form good habits. Just like anything else, you form good habits and good patterns of behavior, and you foster a good mentality. So you can get there.
And I want to make a point, because just so nobody misunderstands, is that we're not claiming, that any partner you choose or find is going to be perfect, or that anybody should be holding out for the perfect person. That's not what I was insinuating. My point is that we have to accept everybody's broken. I'm broken. That's my point, is I don't need somebody who's going to virtue signal, but that's also broken with me, and that we can help each other in our brokenness try to become more whole. And so the point then is, which things are non-negotiable? And you really, if you're going to be dating, you need to already think this stuff out. There's a lot of things that you can negotiate on. Again, looks, different things, that's all negotiable, but there has to be things that are non-negotiable. Orthodoxy is non-negotiable. Family, non-negotiable. Fertility. Just for me, I'm looking for a family. So if you're infertile or done things that may contribute to your infertility, non-negotiable. Like, we can't, it's just a difficult position. And so therefore, then one of the non-negotiations for me is that I want my business to be central to our family, and I would like somebody to help me with that. So then 3 years ago, I may have had way more check boxes than I have now. Because now it's not about me finding a person to fit these categories. It's about me doing what God needs me to do for somebody to fit what I'm doing. And they're going to be broken. But it's going to be very obvious that they fit with what I'm doing. And then that's who God's brought in my life. And I'll accept them, warts and all. I want to accept somebody. I want to give them everything that I've been working on. Because that's how I look at it. Is I've been working on myself. And I've been working on an offering to give to somebody else. And so being selective on who you're going to give that offering to, I think, is a good thing. Waiting for a quote-unquote perfect person, or not being able to, accept somebody that is broken or already has faults, that's not Christian and that's not Orthodox, and that's not what I was insinuating. Just so clarification for some of the people in the chat.
Yeah, totally. And I can guarantee you guys that when Andrew and I met, I was not his dream girl. Like, you know what I mean? I had already been married and divorced. I had 3 kids. I tried to break up with him because I was like, are you insane? Like, what are you thinking? I am a terrible pick. But he saw things in me that he felt like, okay, normally I would never go for that. But in this case, I feel like it's a good trade-off for me. And I pushed him away hard for like a year because I just was like, no, you're young and handsome and attachment free and you're insane. Like what? And I almost thought there must be something wrong with him that he would want to take on my crazy situation. But
well, there are a few things wrong with him. We don't have to get in that in this stream, but
well, that's the thing is like, he's Andrew. Okay. He is the way he is. But I think one of the things that maybe makes me tolerable is that I don't try to change all that.
Right.
I'm not like, okay, you're going to have to stop the smoking and you can't say the bad word and you have to do everything a certain way. It's like, I really just kind of leave him alone for the most part. For the most part, I'm still a wife, but it's like you said, you'll kind of know when somebody comes into your life, if it's a good trade-off. Sometimes people have all the non-negotiables and you didn't think it would be that person. One of my friends just recently got engaged and he was like very black-pilled a year ago about finding a woman. He was super bummed, super depressed. It was like, it's like impossible out there. I'm never going to find anybody, And he found this fantastic tomboy girl who is just a hoot. She's amazing. They're engaged. He's just like, this is the best. And he's so happy.
Great.
And she'll be a great mom and she'll be a great wife, I'm sure. But like, she might have not been the typical hot girl that might have caught his eye.
Mm-hmm.
She's more like, I'm wearing my Carhartt coat and I have my beanie on. Let's go camping, that kind of a girl. But he's like, that's fine with me. I don't, what do I care? And the longer he's with her, she's probably looking more and more attractive just because her personality is like so fun.
That's a real phenomenon. That's a real thing too. And that's where doing the long distance thing as Orthodox is difficult because you can't spend actual time with somebody to see what they really look like, how they really act, how you guys vibe together. But that's absolutely a truth that somebody you may not be entirely attracted. You can grow more attracted to somebody the more you come to know them and see the other aspects that you're lining up with. That's why figuring out what your purpose is as a man is going to help you select your mate. Because if you know where you're going, then you're going to be able to better identify who's going to help you continue going in that direction. If you don't know where you're going in your life, you're going to make a terrible selection on a mate because you're going to be led based on very superficial qualities that may stimulate you in the moment, but aren't going to be things that you can build a life around.
Right. Yeah. And that's pretty much all there is to say about that, I think.
Yeah.
I think that's a good...
in regards to anything else you wanted to say before hopping off here, did you have more witches or anything? I know we've been freaking going for 2 hours and 25 minutes.
I know. No, I brought those two because I knew they would fill up some time.
No, those were great examples, by the way.
Yeah. I mean, if you're writing a sex magic book that Crowley thinks is the authoritative work on the subject, I'm going to consider you legit because he was the guy that popularized it. He was like the practitioner. I know. But like there was this lady who kind of paved the way with her angel husband and her weird ideas about Jesus and Mary and but yeah, this stuff is just, it's a good time of year around Halloween, because right now on Sunday night there's women all over the country dressing up in their hooker outfits. Like, they will turn anything into a sex outfit, right? It's like, I'm a sexy deer. I'm a sexy zombie. Yeah, it's like everything has to be sexy, which is super annoying. We shouldn't even be doing like too much Halloween stuff. I don't think there's like a problem with doing corn maze with your kids and trick or treat or something like that. But as far as like a lot of the stuff Halloween tends to be about, probably not so good. Ask your priest. I'm not a priest, but this is really actually a time of year that witches are really increasing their shenanigans. They're actually, doing more spells and doing more rituals and things like that. And this stuff is real, like energy, magic. Patrick explains this stuff all the time. So if you watch him, you probably understand a lot of the principles behind it, but it's real. And if we keep kind of talking about the historical examples and the realities of it, maybe people will catch on that this isn't a cute aesthetic, or like, I'm just gonna do some sex magic with my moon crystals and manifest myself a new boyfriend. Don't do that. You're gonna end up like you're gonna end up like these poor women that suffered the consequences of the deals that they made. They obviously made deals, and so they had a horrible, violent, tragic endings. It's not good.
We're all making deals to a degree, like even men with their porn addictions. That's why Dr. Mo's going to be coming on. We're doing No Nut November. All the people within the COTEL, every man that's in this live chat. No squirting for the month of November. Yeah, it's a great point, and the sexiness of everything. It leads to a sort of inflaming of the emotions again, right? So the lack of aesthetic beauty, the inflaming of sexual passions and emotions, and then luckily we don't have a full moon this All Hallows Eve. And that's another thing, is that what's so funny, I did a whole stream 1 year, I think 2 years ago, on Halloween, about Halloween. And All Hallows Eve is originally a Christian holiday, and the Halloween that is always attributed to like Druids or European pagan, that was actually on a different day. That the way we celebrate Halloween now on October 31st was much closer to the Orthodox liturgical calendar, where we celebrate All Hallows Eve. And so anyways, I've noticed that we're in a I think we're in a waxing crescent right now. So it's not the most efficacious for the full energy bloom of some of these magical rituals, but
darn. Well, female sexual power is a real thing. Women don't like to talk about it. They get mad at me when I talk about it, but it's important. It's important to talk about it and what it does. And guys, when you succumb to female wiles like that, and you allow women to have influence over you because they're shaking something in your face, it's not only bad for you, it's bad for her too, because women learn and become conditioned that works.
Right.
And so if we're seeing like tons of thoughterry everywhere, it's because they're getting something out of it.
Yeah.
Like I said, there's a reason why they like make fun of me and be like, you don't even have like an army of simps following you around the internet. Must suck to be you. Yeah. It's because they really honestly think this is like a standard for being a successful female.
Right. Exactly. So it's about the attention.
Stop reinforcing it.
So now a woman, how valuable you are, it's like how much attention can you demand, and then how much money you make.
Yep.
And as a traditional man, neither one of those qualities are attractive.
Right. Exactly. So if less men reinforce that, it would go a long way. Just don't contribute to it. It's not good for anyone.
Agreed. Well, Rachel, thank you so freaking much for this stream. I can't believe
I can't believe
it. We've talked straightforwardly. I think it's been 2 hours and like 20 some minutes. It's 2.5 hours live, but we were kind of letting the music play. So it's always phenomenal for us to talk, no matter what the topic is.
I agree. In fact, I got a cute story that's 2 minutes. The first time Patrick ever messaged me to ask if I would be on his show, I was like just about to do Tucker or something. And so we had to reschedule it because it was like going to be on the same night as Tucker. And I was like, okay, I have to do Tucker, but please, like, just don't like ditch me because I'm rescheduling it. Please still do it because I'm actually a lot more excited about doing your show than Tucker Carlson. And he was like, really? Okay. But it's because I think there's so much overlap and we have like a really good rapport with each other when we're talking about this stuff that I don't get with everybody's show I go on. So it's super nice for me. It's always a big treat for me. And I feel like you drop so many little gems and things that I'm just like, that's a good one. You know, it's just like really satisfying to have these kind of conversations with you. So thank you for having me back.
I appreciate that. God bless you and the family. I enjoy them as well. And so it's always fun when you come on. If you have a few minutes, can we go through a few of these super chats?
Sure. Yeah.
So Del Bridge, first super chat comes from Del Bridge, throws in $2 and says, finding good women and men is very rare now. Agreed. That's why we got to be those good men. That way when you come to these channels and you see the peeps that are inhabiting these live chats, we then are those good men and women. There is a void to be filled. So thank you so much, Del Bridge. And Del Bridge throws in another super chat right after for $10 and says, when I was practicing solitary witchcraft, the films named The Craft and The Little Witches enthralled me to delve into the world of occultism. Also, God bless you, David and Rachel. Prayer hands, Orthodox cross. Well, thank you so much, Del Bridge. I actually have not watched The Craft or Little Witches, so maybe what you've just done is highlighted another couple streams topics to do. You know, maybe we can do The Craft or The Little Witches with you, me, and Baselit Analyzer. That'd be a fun stream. If we could watch,
I would
privately,
totally
we'll watch
do that
The
with you
Craft or
guys.
one of the Little Witches, and then we'll do a video analysis, a stream analysis. That'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah, that would be great. I'm down for that.
Cool. So yeah, Del Bridge. You know, I'm not surprised. Unfortunately, I haven't watched those two movies, so I can't give you specific feedback in regards to those movies. But glory to God that you are now out of that magical life and pursuing a relationship with God in the Orthodox Church. God bless you, brother, and thank you very, very much for the super chat. Next super chat comes from the real Cooter Brown for $11. It says, do y'all think part of the appeal of witchcraft has to do with the desire for trying to have some kind of control? I've met a few witches, and they've all had rough lives, parentheses, be it parents, divorce, abuse, neglect, deaths in the family, etc., parentheses, close parentheses, all out of their control.
Yeah, I'm sure that could be a big factor in it.
Yeah, I would agree. I would say the processes of magic, generally speaking, are all about a sort of manifestation of one's will, so that's in a way about control. I do think you make a poignant point in regards to potential catastrophes that one may have experienced earlier in their life. But I would say all magic to some degree is about a person wanting to sort of control events and exteriors that are typically outside their control. That's why they're participating in non-local forms of power to control something. So, the real Cooter Brown, I think you're definitely onto something there. And I think whether it be a witch, a warlock, a wizard, it all has to do with will and power and control to some degree. So I think you hit that. Next super chat comes from our beloved Chase Haggard, throws in $4.99. Shout out to Chase Haggard. My God,
Chase
brother.
the Dagger Haggard.
Chase, man, you did great on your first debate, man. I was telling Rachel privately before we went on here.
Yeah.
Dude, your patience, incredible. Incredible, dude. Your patience, I was telling Rachel, it's like, I know that is a faulty part of me, so whoever I end up with, bear with me. I'm a very impatient person. And so the patience and cool you displayed with the guy so arrogant and so ignorant. I told Rachel, I've met more people that were more arrogant. I've met people that are more ignorant. I've never seen somebody that arrogant and ignorant together.
That was an extraordinary combination.
That was a new level. And so the cool that you had, man, I would have wound up with profanities and yelling at the guy and telling him how retarded he is. I can't deal with this dude. And you just sat there and you did the perfect response. Like just his demeanor, his humility, the clarity. Like, for anybody who actually had eyes and knew what they're watching, that really was the best way to go about it. And so shout out to Chase Haggard. You did a really, really solid job, man. And I was really impressed with your composure and the way your demeanor, just the way that you held yourself in regards to an opponent that was just, he didn't even know the words coming out of it. He didn't know what a hypostatic union was. The dude was retarded in regards to the debate topic. Like, he just was not ready for the debate topic. And so great job by Chase. Great job, Chase Haggard. Anyways, throws in $4.99. Thank you so much, my brother. He says, how much further do you think the inversion of the beauty of womanhood can even go? Seems we may hit a wall here soon and not be able to go further. That's an interesting question. Rach, you want to take that one first? How much further, or do you think it can go further, the inversion of beauty of womanhood?
Yeah, I was kind of thinking while we were talking about that, about the article I wrote about the MK Ultra transgender programs.
Okay.
And I think that they have kind of hit a wall with the women. So now it's like, okay, the next step in the inversion is to tell men that if they want power, they should be a sexy girl. Because have you ever noticed that none of the male to female trans look like me? They're not wearing a sweater and like modest outfits and like, or walking around with their hair in a bun in their sweatpants, cleaning the house.
Nipple pasties and a thong.
They always look like a hooker, a stripper, a prostitute, something like. It's always a leverage of sexual power. It's like, well, I'm not a successful male, so I can be a successful female by turning into a sexy girl.
Right.
So I think that's just like the next level, because we kind of have hit the wall with women and inverted them so completely. That's all I can think of.
I second that, and I also think the inversion, I don't know how much further it can go. I agree with the general premise of the question, because things are getting so degenerate. Like, the extremity of the makeup, as we said, ties them to drag queens. Now it's making men and women sort of inseparable upon appearance, especially if you look at the Asian men, like what they're called. When I was in China, they're called lady boys. And so that was my first exposure to like transgenders that looked like women. I remember I was in the Venetian in Macau. So the Venetian, phenomenal hotel, has a casino in it, and we're walking around, and there's this woman who across the room looked like a 10 out of 10 sitting at a slot machine by themselves. And I was thinking, that's kind of strange. And one of the local guys goes, well, that's a lady boy, right? They sit there by themselves and they wait for men to come up, and then they'll like grab their hand or something. Then they'll take them out. And then obviously you know what they're doing. And I was like, what? That is a dude? That's a dude right there. Yeah. That's a dude? Like the whole body structure looked like a woman. And then
that's why I think they want to trans them earlier and earlier and earlier, because the sooner you start that before boys hit puberty, the more convincing girls they make.
Yeah.
Same flip side is true of making girls look like what. There's some female to male transgender people that look like you would never think that's a woman. There's some of them. I mean, you can tell with the 5 foot tall, 90-pound ones.
Exactly. And they have the patchy
beard.
They
got a patchy beard, but they're like a tiny little. Okay, you can kind of tell. But there's some like that Buck Angel guy or some of. They look like Angel. Branch Warren or something. They're like just grainy. Yeah, look up Buck Angel. That is a female to male. Yeah, it's a porn star.
A porn star? That is a woman porn star that is a dude now?
Yep.
And it's such like I'm looking at his photos right here on Brave browser, just put in Buck Angel. And it's such a sort of like image of what a masculine man would look like. With
it's like a really butch biker looking dude. Yeah. Yeah. And he's very popular. He was turned out by the same dominatrix that turned the twins who did the Matrix movies, turned them trans.
What?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep.
Wow.
Some crazy stuff out there.
Wow.
I know.
This is part of the interwebs I do not delve too deeply in. Just like the techno sissy porn I read on one of your articles, was not aware of that at all.
Sorry, guys. Part of what I do now is that when other people find super weird stuff, they send it to me. They're like, "Oh my gosh, have you seen this?" And I'm like, "Oh, what now? I don't want to look," because it just gets weirder.
Wow. Yeah, one person in the chat says testosterone is more transformative, so female to male can look really convincing. I don't know. I can't make a point on that, but I have, when I was in Asia specifically, saw men that were appearing as women that really looked feminine. And that was kind of startling. But anyway, back to Chase's question: how much more can the inversion go? I don't know how much more it can go, because the sexual relation, the only thing I can imagine, the inversion, the only thing that I can imagine getting worse is the aversion to a traditional man. And so I can't see the aesthetics getting worse, the fat. I mean, what's Calvin Klein's like beautiful woman was a fat black dude that was a transgender woman, right?
Yep.
And it was like, it can't get more inverted than that.
Yeah, I don't know how you could.
So the only thing that can happen, even the aversion to a traditional masculine man, the only thing, there's quite an aversion to that already, but the only thing I can imagine is maybe that getting worse or in women.
I think that's heading that way because a lot of the feminist literature, even going back to I think I found a guy who wrote a book in like the 1600s about, it was like a fantasy novel, one of the first like kind of sci-fi novels, which was about Amazon women who completely eliminated men from their society. And there's been tons of feminist literature in the last 100 years, fantasy stuff about society without men. Just get rid of them altogether. Mm-hmm. Just get rid of them. Just totally get rid of them altogether. It like there were whole groups and communes of feminists who were separatists and wanted to just like either completely separate, or some of them like had genocidal fantasies about just erasing men off the face of the planet. Like, we'll get to a point with technology where we can make test tube babies and then we'll just kill all the men.
Right.
So like I could see that continuing to escalate to a point, but the only problem with that, and I think this is part of the reason there is such a war on masculinity, is because masculine men can stop that.
Right. Absolutely.
As I always say, like, what could we really do if men ever decided to stop it tomorrow?
Yeah, not much.
No.
And I think there will always be the women that have a good father who are then going to want a good man. And so I think those traditional men, there's always going to be a woman through God's providence for them to be with. But in regards to Chase's question, I could imagine, especially with the Gen Z, things to get worse in the degree that women, lesbianism, or relationships with transgender men becoming even more and more and more prevalent, to where it becomes almost like a social thing to demonstrate your progressiveness, your allegiance to equality, global climate change. I don't know what it's going to be.
Well, it's funny you say that, because one of the pickup artist guys that Andy's been debating with has admitted that he's been with more than one transgender woman.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, he says he's been with a few of them, and that not only is it not a difference between men and women, it's like I could see people starting to make these types of MGTOW or pickup artist guys making the case of like transgender women are better, right? They're better because you can't get them pregnant. You can't, you don't have to worry about them wanting a relationship, right? It's all the benefits of having a dude friend, but he looks like a hot chick. It's the best. Like, yeah, this guy admitted to, because he claims to have a 1,500 body count. And he said only 3 of them were dudes.
I've mentioned in other streams how I believe the man who's constantly pursuing sex as a sort of, it's a feminine quality.
Yeah.
Because a man has to limit that self. And so a man who can't limit himself, he's actually more female. And so the fact that then the pickup, because I've seen him come on the Crucible a few times, the fact that he's been with transgender women.
Well, it wasn't Alex who said that. It was John Anthony, who was another
I thought
one.
It was the Alex.
No, Alex didn't do that. Although Alex seems to make apology for any kind of degenerate coomerism that you want to do. But no, he's now beefing with this other dude. John Anthony is the guy who says he's got a 1,500 body count and that 3 of them were trans. So,
Oh my God.
which by the
These
way, I
dudes
don't
are
believe the
disgusting. Like,
1,500.
they
Don't believe it.
deserve it, dude.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Anyways.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, it
Sorry.
wasn't you. I mean, we can blame Chase Haggard for the damn question.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's your fault this time, Chase.
No, Chase, it was a great question, and I think who knows? You know, I kind of lean in your direction. I don't think the inversion of quote unquote beauty of womanhood can get any worse other than their aversion to traditional men, which is going to that really is the only thing that can continue to invert it, because the entrance of a traditional man is going to reorient the woman if she's going to be with him. So the absence of traditional men is the only way that whatever process they're on can continue to go further. So
yeah,
that's kind of my thoughts about that. But thank you so much, brother, and God bless you, and you did a great job in your debate. Next super chat comes from Spyries. Throws in $5 and says, "Great show. Would you guys consider doing research or shows on the benefits of coverture law? Do you agree this would solve a great many social ills?" Oh boy. Are you from coverture is from my understanding has to do with women becoming the property of men in English common law?
Yes, I have debated this before with a person who turned out to be insane. But nevertheless, I have debated it before. And no, I don't think it's the answer. And you guys know I'm not like this big female liberation person.
No.
But also I think that the roots of this problem are spiritual.
Yes.
And so legal measures aren't going to just fix it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you'd have a serious problem in a liberal democratic ethos ever getting anywhere close to that.
Right.
We have 200 or 300 years of precedence where it's like, okay.
Well, wait, okay. So just to give him his question, say it did happen. Do you think that is a good thing or a bad thing? Say coverture laws did come back and women who were married to a man did become associated with that man's identity. And so not that she's property, but what she owns and she's subsumed under his title. Let's say, put it.
Okay.
The problem is technically they are property. I mean, here, let me
Right.
just pull coverture law up and see what we got here. Okay. Coverture was a legal doctrine in the English common law which a married woman's legal existence was considered to be merged with that of her husband so that she had no independent legal existence on her own. Upon marriage, coverture provided that a woman became a femi-convert whose legal rights and obligations were mostly subsumed by those of her husband. An unmarried woman, a femi-sole, had the right to own property and make contracts in her own name.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything inherently morally wrong with that, which I know there's going to be a ton of people that watch this and gasp in horror. I do think that when you are married, the two become one flesh, and if the man has to be responsible for you, then I don't think I'm not personally opposed to it. I don't think it would be morally wrong. So I think if it happened would be a whole different question because, okay, let's say that the most base trad guy ever became president and somehow he got the whole Supreme Court got wiped out. He got all his own judges. Like, let's just say somehow this happened, right? I think what would happen is, number one, in our legal system, people would just find a million ways around it. Number two, women would just refuse to get married and only cohabitate, which they're kind of doing a lot now anyway. Marriage rates are down in general. But there is some women would really go for it and it would actually work out to their benefit and maybe it would catch on. I just kind of doubt it just based on the liberal democratic order that we live in. But
assuming, I don't think it was ever going to happen. Assuming that it did, what are my opinion? My opinion is that I know when I get married, I want my wife to take my last name.
Yeah.
And so that's part of it. And then it comes to her legal identity. Do I care if she has a legal identity to herself? Not really. It's just where I'm at right now, the way that I'm thinking about my relationship. I don't mind her having her own legal identity. I mean, that's a system that has nothing to do with God's system. And so I'm not really interested in
Right.
like changing the laws of the land. But I do, in regards to what I expect as a Christian man, there's aspects of maybe the coverture laws that I expect to be part of my relationship due to my traditionality within
Right.
Christianity. But I don't think my faith needs to be legalized to enforce on other people. Do I think it would help our relationships? Yes. Generally speaking, because that would, if there were those laws, it would force people to be in more relationships, and we would have
And
less young people or a single.
they'd be much more careful about who they chose.
That would be another thing too. Yeah.
But I think you could get most of these benefits just by repealing no fault divorce, which I am for, and I do think we could
I
do.
agree with that as well. You know, like here's the thing for me is I don't want a woman to want to take my name and, you know, help me with my business and merge our finances because there's a legal obligation or if she feels like there's a system that she has to do this. I want a woman who wants to do all this stuff because I want to do all this stuff and I want somebody that's going to reciprocate so I can do things for them. So that's why being an Orthodox Christian is I already know that they're going to be submissive and they're going to understand the different roles. I'm obligated to provide my end of the bargain, but then they need to provide their end of the bargain.
Yeah.
And that's going to be a sort of overlap with these sort of coverture laws, but it's going to be an agreement between us. And if she or I break those obligations, well, then we can go to the priest and the church is going to handle that because the church is what gives authority of why she needs to do this and why I need to do that.
Right. Agree.
Well, thank you very much, Spyries, for the super chat. Next one comes from Jared Fetzer. Shout out to Jared Fetzer. According to today's culture, brainwashing is what your parents and church tells you is right and good, and education is what the government, schools, and corporate-funded media tells you is right and good. Definitely agree with that. Shout out to Jared Fetzer, a great supporter and friend of the stream. Next one, it comes from Meta Ninjas, throws in $5 and says, smash that like. I couldn't agree more. Kristen, slow boy whiteboard. Shout out to Kristen. We love Kristen and her family. She throws in $5 and says, great stream. We love Rachel so much. Thanks for having her on. Well, I love Rachel so much. And I love Andrew. So Andrew, don't take anything to it. No, we love you guys both. And, you know, I love having you. I told you we needed to do something. And I'm just always brainstorming. And the other day, was it Chase's debate? It was, I saw you in the live chat and this topic popped in my head connected. I was like, oh my gosh, I wonder if she can stream this weekend. Or I think I mentioned you Friday or Saturday. And so now it's Sunday, but it's been a great stream. So thank you so much for coming on again. And shout out to Kristen. God bless you and the family. Thank you for your support. Really, really appreciate it. Next one comes from Meta Ninjas, throws in another super chat for $10 and says, what's a witch's trance? I think that was a question directed at you to something you may have said about trance or trance states. What's a witch's trance? I'm not. That's all. Is
okay. I don't remember saying anything about that, but there's two things. One is witches do say that they can kind of like put people in a trance state. They claim to be able to do that, and then the other is a lot of witches would do, in my book, I talk about that trance speaking, where they would give like public lectures and things like that and say that that an entity was speaking through them and that they were in a state of like trance. That was like a really popular feminism thing during the spiritualist period, like 1800s to the early 1900s. So trance speaking was also a good legal way to say things that you couldn't say back then and get away with it because you're like, well, it wasn't really me. I was in a trance state and an entity was speaking through me, right? So it could be that too that he's referring to.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point. And trance states, just another way to get into an altered state of consciousness for the efficaciousness of magic or the acquirement of gnosis to occur. So whether that be drugs, extreme fasting, doing a sun dance down in Arizona, these are all ways to get into a trance state to acquire all that stuff. So I think that might be exactly what he was referring to, and he was just confused on what you meant by a witch's trance. Next one comes from Jared Fetzer. Again, shout out to Jared Fetzer. When you get that much black magic and surgery to continue looking 25 when you're 50, you don't look like a 25-year-old. You look like a 25-year-old lizard.
It's kind of true.
That's basically Madonna.
Yeah, there is something unset. It's like the uncanny valley where when something looks human, but there's something off and it gives you the creeps. That's what I get from that. Like this alien face, stretched, pulled, plumped. It's always very shiny.
Yes.
Like I don't know.
Yeah, there's no wrinkles on her face anymore.
Yeah,
like
there's something,
it is pulled tight,
and their expressions
Botox.
aren't normal.
Yes.
Yeah, so it gives you. I feel like it is that you would have a natural aversion to it, but that's why that might be a reason why it's almost like a requirement. Like they all have to have it.
Right.
Maybe it will normalize it, and people won't be initially super creeped out, but it'll become normalized. I don't know.
Yeah, well, I also think you're picking up on the sort of lack of the image of God in them. So the more they participate in this stuff, the more they are 72 years old, looking like 38 or 4, whatever. It's like you're looking at them and they look younger. You know it's not real, and what you're looking at is like the absence of a real person there. And so it's like you're sensing on the image of God within them has like been obliterated, which is going to necessitate the processes of witchcraft. Or to be a witch, that's what you're doing, is every time you engage in those rituals, you're darkening your own noetic faculties, your nous, to even get out of the hole you're in our opinion.
Yeah.
Next super chat comes from Pim Orsos for $10. No comment. Thank you so much, Pim. God bless you, brother. Really appreciate all the support. Next one comes from Gabrielle Lopez. And so Gabriela Lopez throws in $10 and says, thank you both for the insightful and needed message for today and these times. God bless. Well, thank you so much, Gabriela. I really, really appreciate it. Next one comes from Del Bridge, throws in another super chat for $5. Says, I know that this stream is not about vampirism, but what if someone believes that they need blood to function optimally? Would that be blood magic? Somebody needs blood to function optimally. Well, there are instances, and I talked about this in my stream. I would refer you back to my stream on modern day vampires. If you want to get into vampirism, I deal with that topic there. There are people that need to quote unquote consume blood, but it's a very rare practice. They are quote unquote modern vampires. Apparently, New Orleans is a place where there's a lot of these people down in the bayou.
Anne Rice.
And so I read that in that article or that stream. So I would recommend you, Del Bridge, to go check out that stream if you would like to hear more about vampirism. And the Bible, there's one thing if somebody's going to die without a potential blood infusion, and it's another thing if you're making contracts with somebody to use a scalpel to slice their, a blood vessel so you can drink their blood and then patch it all up. That's what I talked about in the stream, so go check that out. Next super chat comes from Byzantios1. Says, hi folks, thoughts on going to a Catholic priest for confessions? Asking because I'm in Go Arch and in my area they don't take it seriously. Catholic canon allows it. What's the rule on our side? The rule on our side is you absolutely cannot go to a Catholic church for confession. That is not confession. That is not in our church. We don't care what canon law says and from the Vatican. We don't care anything about Catholicism. So Byzantios, I guess good question. The fact that I'm sure there's other people may be thinking about this. Just FYI, from an Orthodox perspective, you absolutely cannot go to a Catholic church to perform confession for your sins and then go commune at an Orthodox church. That's not how it works. Whether your church is taking it seriously or not, it's regardless, your providence is to abide by that church and your church hierarchy. If you'd like to get out of the jurisdiction of Go Arch, then drive to another Orthodox church in a different jurisdiction. If that's not a possibility, then that is your providence to deal with that church. That is why you're there. It's all providence. And so your salvation is tied to dealing with people who may take it less seriously than you. And that may be part of your own humbling experience. I don't know. But that is something that you're going to have to deal with. And so absolutely do not go to a Catholic church. That is not part of our faith at all. There's only one church. There's one holy Catholic and apostolic church. That is the Orthodox Church. If you think they're not serious, That's one thing. Find another Orthodox church. If you don't think they're that serious, they're still Orthodox. That's still a priest. They still have the grace. And if you're communing there, then you damn well better be doing confession there. Okay. Next super chat. Genghis Khan throws in $9.99. Thank you very much, Genghis Khan. No comment. I know you got to get off here because Andrew's getting ready to come on with the Crucible. So we're going to run through these. Day Jire throws in $7.99. No comment. Thank you so much, Day Jire. Thomas Henderson throws in $5 and says, thank you for a super bass stream tonight. Well, thank you, Thomas Henderson. God bless you, brother. And thank Rachel. Next one comes from Storm the Cat, throws in $5 and says, do animals have free will? The answer is no. Animals do not have free will. Free will only comes from the Father and the Trinity. God has free will. Us being made in the image, we then are the only aspect of creation that has free will. That's why we're the only aspect of creation that's going to have a judgment based on whether we can participate in God's eternal reality. Animals already get a free pass because they're not rational entities. We're made in the image, and so we then are judged by the image that we're made in. So that's the answer there. And that does it. That is all the super chats. So thank you guys all so much. Thank you very, very much for everybody who threw in some super chats and supports the stream. Everybody go over to the Crucible, support our brother Andrew and Rachel. Is there anything you'd like to leave the people before we hop off? Again, thank you so much. We literally, it's now 3 hours. We speculated. Remember yesterday, we were like, we're going to do it. Yesterday, we're going to get this whole thing done in about an hour and a half. And then I was like, you know what? Maybe we should just move it to Sunday. I know how we get sometimes. Literally, we're now past the 3 hour mark, and it doesn't even feel like we've been talking that long.
Yeah, it just, if you guys want to read some of my fun research stuff that I write, I have a Substack. It's rwilson.substack.com. You can find me on Twitter. You can buy my book on Amazon or DM me for a copy. And that's about it for me.
All right. And then just real quick, 2 people threw in another super chats. Key 10 throws in $5, says, I was baptized and raised Catholic, but not confirmed. Does that mean I was baptized as a Catholic, or was I baptized generally as a Christian? I'm asking this because I'm curious if I can visit an Orthodox liturgy and receive the Eucharist or not. Key 10, no, you cannot receive the Eucharist. You need to talk with a priest. Even if you're a baptized Catholic or you're a baptized general Christian, doesn't matter, same category for us. So that then comes to a decision of your priest, whether you're going to be baptized or chrismated in on how he personally recognizes your baptism. If you go to a Slavic jurisdiction, they will baptize you. Doesn't matter if you're a baptized Catholic. They don't care. So to answer that as quickly as possible, no, you cannot receive the Eucharist. No, your Catholic baptism does not mean anything in the Orthodox Church. You'll still have to either be chrismated or rebaptized, or what we can say, a real baptism. So go to an Orthodox liturgy regardless. You don't need to be baptized to go to a liturgy. Go to a liturgy. You don't need to be Orthodox. Don't have to be Christian to go to a liturgy. Go to an Orthodox church, participate in the liturgy, and then go, key 10, talk to that priest and tell that priest your situation. Tell him about your background, tell him about where you've been, and tell him about your inquiry and your interest into orthodoxy, and then he can put you in the right direction in regards to being a catechumen. Next super chat. And again, thank you very much, Key 10, for the question and the $5 super chat. Next super chat comes from Michael Warner, throws in $25, just dropping in after finishing my homework. Never did it in high school. Well, I guess there's never a bad time to start. Don't know how old you are. Never thought I'd go to college. Beards getting thick, chest hair multiplying, gains accelerating, become a joyful witness for my saved family. This ministry is wonderful. Well, Michael Warner, congratulations. God bless you, brother. I'm liking everything I heard. A thick beard, chest hair, gains accelerating. You are welcome. Join the family. You are welcome to the community. More than welcome. So thank you so much, brother, for the generous $25 super chat. And I love it, man. Do the absolute best you can in your school, despite the degeneracy, despite the college. Pursue personal excellence, and God is going to do amazing things in your life, brother. I'm telling you, the more you work on yourselves, the more you become a better soldier, the more missions he can put you on. So God bless you, Michael Warner, and thank you very much for the super chat. Truly, truly appreciate it, and thank you very much, Key 10. And that then is going to end our super chat in the stream. Thank you very much, Rachel. Everybody go over to the Crucible and and support the fam over there. So, Rachel, is there anything you wanted to say? What link? Do you have a link tree? Send me your link tree so I can. Actually, it's probably in the other stream. I'll get the link tree from the other stream and I'll put that in this stream. So,
Okay, cool.
Anybody wants to follow her work or go buy her book over on Amazon, do so. I'll have her link tree in the video description as soon as we're off here. So, thank you, everybody. I will be back tomorrow with Posh Redneck.